Game begin.
Hello and welcome to Spy Colony episode 16.
Sweet.
I am here with 17 charisma. It's between 17 and 16 and 18 charisma, Michael J.
Oh, come on.
I'm your co-host.
I have like 14,000 Twitter followers, 17 charisma.
Well, I'm your co-host. I also have 18 charisma according to Twitter.
Oh yeah, so I was gonna put like a follow up to that. Like, according to the responses, either people who were on our podcast last week or just people named Lan H seem to have like a high overlap of high charisma scores.
I wanted to say that after our conversation with Lan and just like getting to hang out with him just like a couple of days, he's just like a A+ like vibe master. I just feel like good when I'm around him. He gives a great high fives. He's like asks poignant questions. He like forces you to he holds you accountable.
He also has a bunch of GP top 8s.
Yeah, and he has a bunch of GP top 8. So he's good at magic in addition to all those other things that makes him a good human being. Big week in Premodern. We just wrapped up the Misty Mountain Fall Cup. Congratulations to Ricky Thorson, or Thursday is God Online, playing Mono Green Ponza Oath, defeating Michael Phillips in the final, who is playing Enchantress. Other decks featured in the top 8 included Survival Welder, which is a survival deck smashed with a welder deck. So it's got survival coolness in the forms of, Genesis, Squeed, Anchor, Phyrexian Colossus, and welder coolness in the form of like Winter Orbs and Tangle Wires. Piloted by Schaefer Hansen and John Donovan. We also saw
so 2 copies of the green-red survival deck.
Yeah, survival. I mean, Survival Welder has just like always been a deck that people love, and like it's a cool deck. I think it has at least some, and we'll get into this later in the podcast because our main topic is about why would you play a worse version of a existing deck. Well, it's certainly a worse deck than else, but it is a deck that does more without Survival of the Fittest on the board, because Goblin Welder is somewhat of an engine itself. Sweet deck, 2 copies in the top 8. Can't sneeze at that. We had green-white Terravore Exalted Angel Cataclysm Oath, in the vein of Patrick Burt and more recently Francisco Polacek. Shout out, friend of the podcast. He claims it's a tier 1 deck in his most recent video. And at the very least, it defeated whatever I was playing on video. You can check that out. F. Palush on YouTube. We had Ray Smith, who is playing Natural Order Rock. It's just the rock, but sometimes it just puts a Neshoba or Verdant Force into play via Natural Order. Ponza. Mono red with land destruction spells.
Looked like there were some G2 encampments in play.
There were some man lands. But there was sauce, cheese, and bread, just like the olden days. And a singular
I went to that Ponzerata shop last Sunday, after archery.
And that was your cheat day, because carbohydrates.
What?
What was your? Did you have like a nice red Ponzerati, or did you have a red-green Ponzerati?
Red and red-green. I went with a friend, and one of us got like the pistachio one, and one of us got the classic one, and we ran the splitsies.
Oh, I love a little half and half.
Yeah.
And the sole wielder of islands, Peter McGrain, with Survival Madness. So
wait, so you don't even cast a spell that isn't blue, right? That's your thing. If I can't portent or sleight of hand, impulse, fact or fiction, I'm just not doing it like that. I'm just taking my 60 and going home. Right? Like that's you.
I do have a hard time not playing blue spells because I like choosing what's in my hand rather than just just getting there, just getting lucky. But one blue deck in the top 8, and Survival Mana barely
and
runs
it's like
any.
not even a blue
it's not
deck.
really
It's
a
a
blue
survival deck, right? Also,
it's a survival deck that sometimes casts days.
I mean, those days look good in the camera match. Still didn't win. So let's run through these, and we don't have the exact list, but I think it's probably pretty good for us to just be like, all right, here are like 3 cards that might be in this deck if you wanna have a flavor of it. So in the 1-8 match, Welder's Survival was victorious over Terra Oath, right?
Correct.
So that match was like when Trevor Alcock cast his Cataclysm. It was like I had the Cataclysms in my deck last week. He cast Cataclysm against Schaefer Hansen, and he had a Kyrian. Which one do you like? It's the other one. Kyrian Ranger in play. Return to Forest, like to save the forest. Kept a bird, and then Utabi Orangutan Trevor's Mox. Like that's about how the Cataclysm went.
Yeah, the player on the receiving end of the Cataclysm prevailed with a follow-up of 5 permanents to opponent's 1.
But it was worse because he was down 2 Moxes at that point.
Yeah, and he also had an Anger in the graveyard, so it was it was just
but the mountain died.
Well, that was a minor misplay, but it was saved by the top of the deck. It didn't matter in the end.
That's a good point, because if he's going to save the forest with the Kyrian anyway, then he might as well save the mountain.
Yeah, I mean,
Lanny Huang, you should have been the pilot there. You would have had the exact same outcome.
I would have also. I too would have won the match from an overwhelming advantage because I would have optimized.
I mean, that isn't actually a gigantic difference.
It's
right?
true. It's true. I mean, it should have been a double optimization because he should have main phase picked up a forest and then responded to the Cataclysm by picking up another. But a win's a win. What happened in Natural Order versus Mono Green Ponzo?
Well, so Natural Order Dark Secret. This is like the Rock. It looked to me like Ray Smith had both Wall of Blossoms and Wall of Roots in the deck, along with Birds of Paradise. So lots of the cards that you like to have in your Rock deck, all of them were all there alongside.
Literal only one of them.
Yeah, alongside Pernicious Deed.
How dare you?
And so, just go get like a 7/7 lifelink or whatever. That actually, I was cheering for Ricky because I actually don't have a horse in the race, but I did want Ricky to win because I thought he had the underdog deck being mono green. So, and I have a soft spot for this mono green deck. As you know, I bought a bunch of the cards for it. So I wanted him to win, but it did not look to me like he could ever win a legitimate game in this matchup. If Ray Smith just got to like 4 mana or whatever, even he did it under a Sphere of Resistance in one of the games, right? He just gets a creature that is like far too annoying to be defeated by the mono green deck, right?
Well, if Ricky, it was an interesting matchup. So Ricky just kind of beat down in game 1, got Natural Order in game 2. But if Ricky oaths out a Terravore that is taller than a Neshoba, then he'll actually win that battle. And then
but Pernicious Steed is real good at
exactly. So it was just kind of
cost permanent.
Yeah, so it was kind of like
it's not hard.
an interesting back and forth. But of course, Ricky got across the finish line with Plan A, which was put 2 Sphere of Resistance in play, Wasteland Port, Winter's Grass, Thromakarst his way to victory. The Rock player ended the game with 2 forests in play and a grip of Vendetta black cards, basically.
Well, as a player who chose to play the Rock, there's not much you can say about the situation other than he got what he deserved, which is to win slightly less than half of the games. So, what's less than half of 3? He won 1 game. Bully for him. He made it to the top 8 with the Rock. And then Ricky Thorson advanced. So in the 3-6, we had Welder Survival played by John Donovan against Enchantress played by Michael Phillips. That wasn't a camera match, was it?
It wasn't.
So again, the Welder Survival, you have Welder, you have Anger, you have Mountain, you have Survival. Your big thing is you can get the big girl and then never have to not be able to untap the big girl because you just switch it with another artifact, Phyrexian Colossus, which I know you've played against this deck a lot of times and probably been brained for about 27 per game by Phyrexian Colossus, right? It's a very dangerous creature with haste.
Yeah. So I have tested many a match against Welder Survival because I played it in the first match of LobsterCon. I played against David Tao, who was in love with the deck. And I might have even played a little bit against Tom. Tom will have to fact check me against that. And yeah, across probably a dozen test matches against Welder Survival, I've been attacked by Phyrexian Colossus 0 times.
0.
Just literal 0.
Lan was telling me, he's just like, you people don't understand. Like, that was like the big threat that I was tinkering out back in Chicago, top 16 Chicago.
Yeah. The Lan talked about that on All Things Considered. He was just like, yeah, we got this broken tinker spell. What are we gonna go find? 8/8 doesn't untap.
Well, you could have Voltaic Key could untap it. Is there Voltaic Key in Premodern, or is it banned?
Yeah, it's a Premodern card.
But nobody plays it.
Well, there's nothing to untap. There's no time.
Untap like like a Thran Dynamo.
You certainly can.
I didn't know what to do, right? So I was like with BK and Lan back in like Chicago in '99 or whatever. I've got like a Grim Monolith, right? I've got a fast Grim Monolith, rock and roll. I draw this Tinker, and I'm like, what should I do with this? And they're like, well, you could upgrade it to a Thran Dynamo.
Yeah.
I'm just like, really? Yeah, it's like very similar, but like it just untaps itself instead of like having to pay to untap it. I'm like, that's the best I could do. Well, in this situation, you really wouldn't want to go for like a Phyrexian processor. What if they blow it up? Like, what if they blow up my Thran Dynamo? Look, man, I wasn't a good Tinker player. Like somebody they didn't even have naturalized back then. But whatever the equivalent of a naturalized was, they were probably going to aim it at whatever I got with my Tinker. So let that be a lesson to you. Lanny's never been attacked by the big girl.
Yeah.
Not one time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think basically even in positions where the survival welder player could like conceivably survival up a Colossus and then haste out a welder to like rotate their like shield sphere into the Colossus and get in and then untap it with the Quirion Ranger. I think the Elves player might have just put you dead like a turn ago. But
wow, there's a lot of creatures that you named that are just meat to a goblin sharpshooter in the scenario you're describing. They're like, I'll tell you what, that looks like 16 damage. 16 isn't 20. Give me a second over here. That said, it was so convenient killing all of your guys.
That said, I mean, Survival Welder is sweet. I do like that the deck that was featured on camera featured a little bit of Burning Wish. So the Burning Wish target was called the Herd. So we're just naming cards that I love.
So I'm going to just say words that are secret words. If you were not in sometimes you're just like, look, people have to do this because they don't participate in closed door testing sessions. Like those are words you said to me last week. And I'm like, weird. All I ever do in my free time is closed door testing sessions. I love to play Premodern. So you said in our Egret say Iscord day that you like exasperatingly were just like, does no player in the United States actually just know how to play elves? Right? Like you said that. And then Fran said, yeah, like I'm not good at elves, but I still have like a 93% win rate. Like I for sure could be killing people 3 turns faster, and I have a 93% win rate. So talk to me about this. Is Survival Welder just a bad elves deck?
I mean, I think that it's fair to say that every green deck, every single deck containing forests. No,
it's a terrible elves deck.
I mean, I think so. This is the paradigm, right? Like, you could try to make an argument that the elves deck is not a very impressive deck without the card Survival of the Fittest in play, and it is maybe more susceptible to cards like Engineered Plague or just good old Pyroclasm or Cursed Totem. These cards all are really great against elves. So you could sort of structure an argument with like, oh, well, with all these like Engineered Plagues running around, I would like rather, play Goblin Welder and Phyrexian Colossus. This is all, as we have learned, a copium. Yeah, like the elves deck is so obscenely powerful at what it does. It's good without survival of the fittest. Now that we've seen that natural order can be safely added to the elves deck to no detriment to the core strategy, like it can attack on that angle. I mean, it's just it, and the speed with which it wins after resolving survival of the fittest. Like all this, like this entire recipe like makes for the best, most consistent use of the best card advantage, now the best card advantage engine in all of Premodern. So yes, Survival Welder and also Survival Madness are, in a sense, bad elves decks. No, it's not like you would never, ever play not elves if you wanted to play survival. I'll add Tradewind Survival and other survival variants.
That is really a bad elves deck. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to point something out, which before you get too far down your copium diatribe here, like Ryan Fisher, who made top 8 of the Sacred Torch Showdown with elves last week, played he played a different sideboard, but he played starting 60 from what I had posted on Twitter. Like what? Twitter. Yeah, on X like 2 days earlier. And like the only reason I pointed out, because a lot of these decks are pretty similar, is that like I had like 1 or 2 cards different from the deck that had been played and elsewhere. And like notably, I just had a main deck Druid Lyrist, right? So I tested elves a lot. And if you have a main deck Druid Lyrist, you just don't lose to idiots who think that they're going to beat you with Engineered Plague. It's kind of a joke, right? Like, you're like, okay, you have an Engineered Plague. Let me just go get my Druid Lyrist, and then you kill their Engineered Plague, and then you just kill them.
Yeah,
like that's pretty much just what happens in game 1. Engineered
Plague is like really so good against elves if you have Engineered Plague plus a clock or plus a lot of counter spells.
Like I think you need to have like David Daniel level clock, right? Like negators, pressure from hypnotic specters, and red removal in order to back that up. If you just have like 7 power in play, which is like a 3-turn clock, not counting potential life gain from the elves, like if you give me three turns with the survival in play, right, and your defense is an Engineered Plague, I can certainly deal 30 damage from a standstill almost every single time.
I mean, it's probably right? Like the with survival in play is probably the biggest caveat of that, right? It's just kind of like you can do anything with survival in play. If you're elves, you can truly do anything with survival in play.
I think people can't. That's actually the thing that I was going to raise, because I thought it was funny, the thing that you said, right? So when we were preparing for Sacred Torch, I played elves against goblins a lot, right? First session I did with Lan, and Lan annihilated me. I think we might have played 3 straight hours, and I won 1 game. 1 game. And I had games where I natural ordered for Verdant Force. I had a game where I natural ordered for Verdant Force, then natural ordered one of the tokens for Phantom Neshoba. I had a game where I 3rd turn attacked with a Phantom Neshoba and died the next turn. Like, this is like a pretty impressive set of ways to lose, right? And so I realized just like the Elves deck just has to execute perfectly. Like every single thing has to go for it, and then it can win. But if like anything doesn't go for it, Goblin's deck annihilates it. So Lan was just like, we have to take our Elves off the table. That was his conclusion. Just can't ever win, right? So then we were testing his green-white deck, right? So this next session, we played we played an inordinate amount of elves against green-white. At that point, I won almost every single game one. and I was winning fast through Oath and through Wrath, right? So he's like, this is insane. Then he won almost all the sideboarding games, which is why we were content with playing the green white deck, right? So, but the main thing that I was going to argue is like, I just don't think most players could kill as quickly as I was killing, right? Like I was like killing on the third or fourth turn through a Wrath or an Oath, right? And I just observing people playing elves, I just don't think they see the lines. So I think that that's one of the reasons why elves isn't as popular in the United States. People just don't know how to execute with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to like downplay the people who have good elf skills, but maybe they're taking a break. They are certainly less common in United
America
States because of notably Ole Rod, Pablo Suarez, Johannes Kemmler, Anton from Monster of the Week. These are all people who have reps with elves. They're all and then of course South American champion Damian Veroneri. These are all they're just
non-US players.
Like
yeah.
No United. Like who's the best elves player in the United States? Is it Mike Arnold? Yeah, I guess it must be.
I mean, he's a great example of a player who was browned by goblins. I commentated that match. So I would say I don't think I'm a perfect elves player, for example, right? But I think that I'm pretty good. And like I'm not as good as Ole. But like the joke that I always make is I think that the average elves player has an insurmountable advantage like on turn 4 and they think they were doing it, right? Then they don't realize they could have done lethal on turn 3. Like that's they just don't see the line, right? Like it's often difficult to see the line. That's the thing. So but I don't know. I just wanted to think about that because, just because of the comment you had made, and Fran just talks about elves every day. And I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are at elves, goblins gets you.
Yeah.
There's no out. There's no out, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm content with that. I mean, I'm content with maybe surviving with the bad goblins matchup if it means you're just so
your current plan is to borrow all of the expensive Premodern decks from me, right? Like,
yeah, that's my
any of the Premodern decks that are like $3,000 or more, like those are the ones you're going to borrow.
So basically the whole thing was like I own 4 Mox Diamonds and you don't, but then you bought Mox Diamonds, so now I own nothing in comparison to you. So I just like have the Mox Diamonds and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play decks with Mox Diamonds in them. I'm not going to get Gaia's Cradle. I'm not going to get Intuition. I'm not going to get Survival of the Fittest. 2 of the cards I named, as you noted, are not blue cards, nor do they accompany blue cards into.
I mean, they're similar
battle.
to blue cards. One of them is very similar to a Black Lotus. The other one is very similar to like I was going to say compulsion, but it's much better. It's really similar to a compulsion.
It's like a
compulsion were really good.
2-mana Future Sight,
yeah, but like better than Future Sight because you don't just get the top card of your library; you get any card you want for exactly the situation that you want to be in. Whether that's a silver bullet situation or just killing the other guy.
But yes, you are correct. My plan is to borrow cards from you. Where it matters. So I want to talk about. I think this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, and it's about the average ability of a player at a pre-modern tournament. And I'm just going to say,
depends which pre-modern tournament.
No, I'm saying all of them. I'm including New York. I'm including LobsterCon. LobsterCon, in my experience, was the toughest competition I faced. I'm including Madison. Obviously with land tax gone, Sam Black isn't in the room. Folks at Madison were just kind of letting their hair down, trying out their cool brews. But I'm going to say that like the average level of your like pre-modern competition, meetup, tournament, national championship, it's lower than, like a sweaty RCQ, like an RCQ in a populous area. And I'll explain the reason. The reason
you're probably
is
right.
The reason is that at the sweatiest pre-modern tournament of all time, or so people thought would be, the Sacred Torch Showdown, like I explained replenish combo to every single one of my opponents, but my first 5 opponents. I talked about that last week. Mike Harris talked about it recently on his podcast that he explained his combo through the top 8. In his 3 rounds of top 8, he was just roasting his opponents and then explaining to them, like about their opportunities to interact. And so when you sleeve up a deck like Elves, Goblins, Dreadnought to a pre-modern tournament, your base expectation, I would say, if it's like a 6-round tournament, I think your base expectation is just 4 free matches somewhere in the tournament. You just have to clutch out a single match, because you're just going to be so much better. Like
that is a incineration take.
I'm sorry. This is my experience, and I'm going to talk about it through the lens of my experience. So one thing that I never did was I never talked about my round by round at LobsterCon. And I have a lot of respect for my opponents at LobsterCon. They're all really, cool people with good stuff going on, but the level of bloodthirst, was not quite there, right? You play RCQs, right? So you show up to these RCQs. There's like 32 people. They want that qualification. They play on arena.
They want it too much. They take bad money splits. I don't know, man.
Yeah, they
prioritize things in life in a certain way. Sure.
Yeah. So they just go for it. So my LobsterCon, this is the biggest pre-modern tournament of the year. Round 1.
Euros is going to be over 200 people.
Euros is going to be massive. Shout out to Aaron Dix, who's the sole member of the Illuminati and the United States for the most part, attending Euros. So at LobsterCon, I played against Survival Welder round 1. My opponent, great guy, just small things like, he just put anger and Squee in the graveyard at the same time, and I just like tutored up to Crypt and then just like crypted. And then of course like Oath Shard Phoenix meant he never had a board. Easy win. Again, Parfait, obviously a broken deck, but that's the thing, is like face no resistance, right? My second match was against I believe it was Mike Packer, who actually came down to Sacred Torch Showdown, and he was playing his signature Zombie Infestation Dredgeless Dredge deck. And again, Oath Shard, like the baseline operating of my deck was just much more powerful, and his deck just didn't line up well into it.
If you were playing a creature deck without haste, like you literally don't have haste, and by haste I mean like land still has haste, right? Because it can attack with man lands that are in play, like essentially can attack from a standstill, or not a standstill the card, but like from a no momentum situation, or you can just like fireball the opponent with a Decree of Justice at the end of turn. Right, like outside of decks that actually have haste or have a capability like Decree of Justice or Manlands, are you just cold to Parfait with Oath? Like, is that just a thing?
You're just cold to Oath Shard Phoenix, Chose.
Like you're just cold, right? Like
absolutely.
That's an interesting thing to describe. And yet, people like you and Rich were just deciding that this was perfully fine for everybody.
I thought that Oath of Druids was the more bannable card between Oath of Druids and land tax because Oath created such a lopsided paradigm on the battlefield. Whereas
not being able to play lands and not being able to play creatures is like incredibly prohibitive.
Yeah, not having both is prohibitive. But the biggest thing was that if you wanted to let your opponent just tax all day, and then you just did something that was like better than what they could, like if they couldn't convert the cards in time. So like, for instance, if you were playing a deck that had tax rack, and your opponent just starts playing Call the Herd, flashing back Call the Herd, and just presenting a threat every turn, that opponent can actually wedge in. Now, obviously, you build your deck to have tools to combat.
They won't, but sure, I guess it's an imaginary universe.
Well, but the point is that your opponent can your opponent is free to execute their game plan, right? They just need to face resistance in the form of the volume of card advantage you had. So anyways, continuing, played against Rage at home. Again, that match was a walk. I played against David Kaplan. Again, much love to Dave Kaplan, but he finally came around to understanding that Blue White Dreadnought is the better Dreadnought deck. But at the time,
at LC, he was a mono blue.
He was mono blue, and I won that match. I credit that match win because he was playing mono blue, and Parfait just has a much better mono blue matchup than versus Blue White.
As does every single deck in existence.
Yep. And
there's not a single deck that would rather play against Blue White than mono blue.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Not a single deck. But sure.
So from there it gets a little hazy. I think I played against Burn, which was obviously a walk. I played against a Blue White Tide control deck, a deck that I played against Selden and lost, so obviously Selden crushed me. I played against a Blue White Tide deck. My opponent said he was trying to attack the metagame of Landstill by playing heavier Landstill, but he didn't understand that I couldn't get decked if I had a scroll rack in play. So he played the last 20 turns of the game until we had no libraries, and then I just racked my hand and drew 0 cards, and then he scooped, and there was 10 minutes left on the clock, so that was a 1-0.
Oh my god, you got him.
And then of course
didn't see it.
and then of course I played the legendary game of 0-0-1 draw against Colton Abrams. So I got so many matches for free at LobsterCon, and that was my plan. My plan was, I literally had mentioned it. I was just like, some people can't afford this deck. Some people can't play this deck. So no one's going to be prepared for this deck because nobody has a homie who's doing testing with them and figuring it out. And in fact, multiples of my opponents were just like, oh, I didn't get any testing in against the Oath version because I guess everybody was playing the Sand Black version in their testing gauntlet.
So wait, pause for a second. My imagination of people who aren't us, right? So I know us, right? But my imagination of people who aren't us is Mike Arnold and Flint and Hoyp, right? I mean, Flint is kind of us, right? But doesn't live here, right? So and Aaron, who have their communities and extensive collections and are doing the exact same stuff we're doing.
Yeah, but that's the most the most committed players, the most engaged players. You take one step down, and it's just me and my 3 buds. We normally play Legacy, but we have pre-modern decks, and so we play those sometimes, and we just buy cards and we look at them.
But those people are flying to LobsterCon?
I mean, I assume so. Just because it's it's still a fun thing to do. It's a fun thing to participate in, no matter what your engagement of pre-modern is.
I'm just saying, my imagination of people is that they're mostly like us, and the other thing is,
well, there's also 1,000 decks to test against, Yeah, but and testing against Parfait is just not fun.
Yeah, I know. We didn't do any of that.
Yeah, we didn't do
only for you. We were able to.
I was actually just I need to get some testing in because I'm just helping you guys test your decks. Nobody's helping test my deck. But then you were like, oh, let's play some Landstill versus Parfait. I'm like, oh, we don't have time for that.
So what was the name of the gentleman who came in second at Sacred Torch?
That would be Adam Sitsis.
Yeah, so Adam's there. This green white deck is a brand new deck that Fran has been playing.
Right, but that's top of the heap. That's
dude
top of the
shows up. He's got and he schooled you. He's this is how you're supposed to play.
Yeah. So the thing. Okay. So on one hand, you got Adam, and Adam played super well. He deserved it. But he was taking advantage of the same thing, which is just being more ready than other players. Shout out to Cam Fulton and Matt Perlman. They were taking the tournament so seriously they didn't know they were playing a win-in in the last match. They had the camera, the lights on them. They're they're messing.
If Matt had won one of those matches, we had him on 3 rounds in a row. If one of them was, I would have been top 8.
Yeah, probably something along those lines. Anyways, you see what I'm saying. So what I want to say about the point of my thing is look, listen, if all you care about winning, and honestly, I don't I'm a pretty bloodthirsty player. It's not the only thing I care about. If all you cared about was winning, you roll up to your next pre-modern pre-modern meetup, pre-modern league showdown, 0K, 1K, fall cup. You just play freaking elves or goblins at a good level and dreadnought at a good level.
You think that's the top elves, goblins, dreadnought?
It's dead money. I do think that's the top. Unfortunately, there were a couple Dreadnought players, and they did not make the top cut at Misty. So the green decks at Misty came prepared for Dreadnought. I do think that's super interesting. The second place
I think we have to include Landstill in the top tier, because a month ago I would have said it was Goblins, Landstill, and 12-12, and I don't have Elves in tier 0 because it's so bad against Goblins, and it also never beats Landstill. Like,
right, but the thing is, well, one, it doesn't never beat Landstill, and two,
I play this matchup a bazillion times. Never beats Landstill. I've beat you with Elves. Anyways, this is you never beat me. You're making this up.
Okay. Regardless, even if you don't play well into like the most aggressively competitive players, those players, there's only 7 other ones of them in the room. You're the 8th. You're in. You're in. Like, like I
don't know, man. I didn't top 8 Sacred Torch, and I'm confident I tested the most of anyone in the room. You
may or may not have made one of 2 mistakes. The first mistake,
I made 3 mistakes.
The first mistake was not playing correctly on the board. The second mistake was not bringing a deck named Elves, Goblins, Phyrexian Dreadnought. Like,
but my point, but the deck that I played beats all those decks. That's why we played it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're too smart for your own good. Like, at the end of the day,
same thing I did at LobsterCon, right?
Yeah, I mean, Landstill. The reason why I didn't include Landstill is because Landstill is actually the kind of deck that doesn't fare well into the chaos that is the pre-modern format. So, for example, if you sleeve up Landstill and you've got it all calculated, you've got your Dreadnought plan, you got your Goblins plan, you got your Elves plan, you feel super good, you can just run 4 matches. All that has to happen is 2 of those matches is against something weird like, Rifter, or like an oppressive combo deck that like isn't weak to counterspell. Like,
I went 3-1 with Landstill at the meetup right before
Hermit Fit.
Sacred Torch.
I mean, I'm inviting you to consider that you're exposing yourself to a range of chaos. Like, somebody can just play this like zombie infestation deck.
Yeah, but your argument is that you can only play. Like, you're literally, the definition of your tiers is that you can only play creature combo decks. You just literally like, here are 3 creature combo decks. They're like, you have to play proactively.
Well, I think Replenish is a great pick, but
all 3 of these decks have like at least 2 different gears that are proactive and different from one another, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, they're very consistent and they're very powerful. I think that Landstill is very consistent. I don't think it's very powerful. Yeah, so that's my calculus for the tournament. I mean, that kind of goes into Sacred Torch Showdown. I mean, I picked Replenish over Grotog specifically because of the black mid-range decks in the room, but also Replenish has a high base power level. I got so many free wins throughout the day. In fact, all of my wins in the Swiss were free or free adjacent. I Luxacked against Goblins again and just had the nuts against them.
I mean, I watched Sylvain play you with my borrowed Pernicious Deeds, and he just defeated you with your own Call of the Herds.
That's correct. I mean, right? I had one. I had the one allowed slip up. Then I walked all over Dead Gael. I had an easy run against Goblins. I drew double Exalted Angel against Threshold.
Threshold is a deck? I would love to play Threshold. I love Threshold.
Yeah, the Threshold deck was sweet. Shout out Ari. I believe he might have traveled from out of town, but he brought Thresh Grow, Quad Nimble Mongoose, Quad Werebear, Quad Quirion Dryad, Quad Meddling Mage. And just in case that mana base wasn't working, you got Quad Mox Diamonds paired with some number of Wasteland, 4 Mental Note, etc., etc. That deck was wild. It was not very good against Exalted Angel.
Sounds like a stompy deck with an incredibly difficult mana base.
Yeah, it has issues, but it was sweet. Anyways, I defeated that, and then I defeated a Landstill Oath deck, with my abeyances and whatnot. But yeah, anyways, these wins came, without tremendous effort, because Replenish is just such a strong deck. Notably, I played against Goblins. Goblins is the only tier 1 deck that I played against. My other matchups were Dead Guy, couple brews, and goblins.
See, I played against elves, landstill, like mostly real decks. I played against goblins twice. I don't know.
So,
I mean, I lost to Matt Perlman in round 1.
I mean, so
I played against almost all real decks.
Well, you didn't play against Landstill. You played against Cloud of Fairies.
It's Landstill that had Cloud of Fairies instead of Impulse.
So,
like his play
Lan,
pattern is like second turn Cloud of Fairies.
Lan experienced what I was describing though. He ran. You guys did the math. You did the testing. You're like, this deck beats all the good decks. And then round 1,
we thought people were going to bring their freaking aces.
We didn't
think people were just going to bring like
some guys just don't play aces. Some guys just like play decks for fun, and you got to beat those guys too. And that's the problem. Like, and what happens when you run against green white Astral Slide Value Town? Do you got a plan for that?
We can't beat that. That's that guy had. Was he like Monk Idealist against Monk Idealist Astral Slide?
No, it was even better. It was Auramancer bring back Seal of Cleansing. So it was a build your own Monk Idealist Astral Slide.
He also had like Astral Slide Cartographer.
Yeah.
So he like chopped up lands mana base while getting back cycling lands.
Yep.
I mean, that's gross.
And then you've got a second round. You got Mike Harris. Like, what are you gonna do if Mike Harris rolls up into town? He's somehow in the 0-1 bracket, but
yeah, but I told Lan that there was this thing called Full English Breakfast and that only Mike Harris would play it. I told him both of those facts before the tournament. And I'm just like, just don't play against Mike Harris. You won't have to worry about Full English Breakfast because I don't think we can beat that deck.
Well, there you are.
And he was running all these scenarios. And I had deja vu about all of the mental scenarios I had for Red White Rifter before LobsterCon 2022. I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach this matchup. This is how I was running those routines with the green white deck for some of these combo decks. And I should have caught myself at that point. I was just like, all right, here's the thing with Feb. If you can do this, this, and this right, then you don't lose. But if any of these things falls, you're probably going to die, right? So your game plan has to be to kill every creature and to kill all the survivals, but it's really hard for them to go off if they don't have survival play. That was that was my advice to Lan. But Lan had that hilarious speech last week.
Yeah, that which
Phil Nguyen is now co-opted as the new banner of Premodern.
Yeah, he's not a boomer. He's a cool guy. Anyways, listen, if you're just like, yeah, I think I forget what story. Oh, actually, it was on the recent Premodcast. So I think either Jared or Mike told the story that like one guy at their F&M could afford the wildfires and the mana rocks and the dragons to play the Kai Bude wildfire deck, and he just
the world championship
deck? The championship deck,
Covetous Red.
Yeah, they tell the story. It's just like that guy did not lose F&M for like 6 weeks because he had wildfire and everyone else just didn't have.
Wildfire is a $1 card.
Just like didn't have whatever.
When it was legal and
maybe the $1. Dragon. I don't know. Anyways, he's just like, he had wildfire. None of us did. It's like, just don't show up to your next Premodern meetup and just be like, oh man, can't beat the
one guy with wildfire.
Can't beat survival of the fittest. Can't beat Dreadnought. Oh, freaking Mike. Always showing up with his expensive dreadnoughts and survivals of the fittest. And Goblins is a pretty inexpensive deck.
Red deck is pretty inexpensive. There was one of the top 8 of Sacred Torch.
You don't want to be one of those guys who just like isn't losing because you just like refuse to play the powerful deck. Again, caveat: we're not all here to win matches. Sometimes we're here because we got a chip on our shoulder about what people have been saying about your Grotog deck, and you just like want to prove them wrong, and then you end up winning the tournament anyways. So
what you're describing is a leak. Okay. That said, everyone is interested in winning. Everyone is interested in their technology being good. I think that the thing that is potentially a rift in the community is, I think everyone wants their ideas to be good. I think everyone wants to think that they're like trying to contribute to the the cause of greater technology, the cause of technological advancement. It's that some people are just like enamored of, like, they're just in love with their idea, regardless of whether or not their idea is actually productive.
All right, I actually want to stop you right there.
Yeah,
because I agree, but I have something even more incendiary to say.
Okay. Go.
In order to be good at making magic decks, like truly good, to achieve the thing that you want, which is to come up with a novel idea and, you know, bust it out, show it out, break onto the scene. You also have to be good. You have to be better at Magic than you would be playing net decks, right? So you can't just be an average.
This is a complicated topic,
but it's just true, right?
It's not true.
No, it's true. It
is not true.
How can you possibly hope to build a good deck if you don't understand how to improve the deck to begin with? So
this is a complicated topic. I will give.
Are you just saying this because you're a good deck designer and a horrible player?
I'm a great deck designer and an above average player. I mean, I'm John Finkel compared to the average Premodern player. Let's be honest.
Let's see some John Finkel numbers, Michael J. You can't just start throwing out names like that when you forget to pay for Mana Link.
I didn't forget. I thought I was dead on board. That's also a John Finkel would not have screwed that up. So, but you know, I'm not hangry anymore. I just had like an entire. I just made a pork roast from Trader Joe's, and I ate it all. So,
protein.
There's two things here. One, I've said this to you before. This is a million % true. If you're a content creator, on average, you could play like brews or whatever, and it's just better for you to make like top 6, equivalent of top 16, top 32 with your brew than it is for you as a content creator to make top 8 with a net deck, right? So that is a bread and butter thing for me, right? It is literally just better because you're creating your brew isn't always the best. Sometimes it's the best. Often it is the catalyst for other people who are content creators or other people who are deck designers to take off and do interesting things. Like I made like like other people made better Splinter Twin decks probably at some point than I did, right? But I won the first big Splinter Twin tournament, right? Like, or the Genesis Wave deck or whatever. Like Conley Woods did a way better job with the Genesis Wave deck at the Grand Prix level than I did. But that deck was a completely new idea, right? Before that came together. Same thing. I think your replenish innovations are inspired, right? I declared you the best deck designer on earth. I guess I'd forgotten that Sam existed for a while. Based on a lot of the innovations you had made individually, traceable only to you, right? There are things that people are like, oh, Hivemind did that. No, Lanny did all of these things, right? But like even the stuff that you did was highly reliant on stuff that I had built into Replenish that literally didn't exist before LobsterCon 2022, right? Like before there was just a bunch of bad Replenish decks, right? Then there was like a pretty good Replenish deck. And then there was like this monstrosity that you abused poor Rich Shea with at the end of the chain. So I don't think that my Replenish deck was like the Replenish deck. Your Replenish deck's probably better, right? In a lot of ways. Certainly has different capabilities. But like you've all this Flores DNA in your Replenish deck. You just wouldn't exist if my Replenish deck didn't happen first.
Right, but
you just had some lapses in it.
This
right?
doesn't run counter to my thesis, which is just
it's not required. The other thing is
let me stop you right there. I'm saying that you need to be good enough to know what cards to put in your brew. Like that's all I'm saying. Like so let's take a very simple example, right? So actually let's take multiple examples. Let's talk about some cool pre-modern decks that have emerged over the last year.
Oh no. I think this is a great topic, but I'm not ready to go to that topic yet. I want to go back a second and then let's go to that topic, right? Remember we talk about fighting styles and then there's no such thing as fighting styles.
Yeah.
That there's just leverage.
Common thread, yeah.
Yeah, there's just leverage and force.
Take a shot if the Spy Colony just talks about how there's no specialities.
So it's just there's just leverage and force, right? So when people do things like I'm gonna add this capability to a deck, right? Like you didn't add a capability to a deck if you're just doing the same thing that the deck already could do with different cards, right? Like let's say that you had a Xerox based deck and this deck has like a bunch of cantrips in it, right? And you're just like, okay, I have a bunch of sleight of hand and opt, which cost 1, and I'm gonna run through my deck and make my deck more consistent by doing that. If somebody else comes in and they're just like, oh, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but with, what's the name of the one that like accumulated? I'm going to do accumulated knowledge and impulse, right? Like, dude, like I'm already doing with opt-in and sleight of hand. Like, no. But I'm doing the same thing with impulse and accumulated knowledge. But sometimes I draw more cards. Well, oftentimes you drew fewer cards because I cast twice as many cards as you, right? Like I actually dug deeper than you, and it's not. And so accumulated knowledge is really powerful in a control deck, maybe, but that's not a capability you necessarily want in a Xerox deck, right? You just end the game. Who cares if you have like all these other cards in hand? They're not doing anything, right? Like so, like that is nothing. You've done nothing. We're just talking about leverage and force. You're doing the same amount of you're doing the same amount of force requiring 5 times as much energy to do it. That's not good, right? So there are 2 things that you can do in Magic, and this counts as making a new deck. You have to do one of these 2 things. One of them is if you're iterating on an existing deck, you have to make the deck a turn faster. If you didn't make the deck a turn faster, you didn't make a new deck, right? That is number 1. Did I make the deck a turn faster? If you didn't make it, if you made it a little bit faster, I don't know. Maybe you made a new deck, but probably not. Or without disrupting its core too much, you gave it a capability that makes it so that it can win a certain way or not lose a certain way that it had before. So Argent Knot versus Mono Blue is an outstanding example of this, right? You disrupt the core a very small amount to gain a massive capability. Gaining capability while disrupting the deck by a lot is usually just bad, right? That's how you iterate to a new deck. Now you can talk about all these amazing new brews that have happened in the last 6 months, because that is the thing that I would just hold up and be like, this is a format that is dynamic. This is a format where new decks and new tech are still being developed, however many years in. There's 3 new decks I can think off the top of my head that were developed in the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Like, and they're good. That's the other thing. They're good decks.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I'm sort of about to get into, because so my point, the reason why it's incendiary is because it kind of is it's pretentious. It's basically saying like, if you're not good at Magic, don't brew Magic decks, and that's not what I'm trying to say, because obviously brewing is super fun. It's a great goal unto itself, and then sometimes you stumble onto, like, through the process of trying a lot of BS nonsense, you stumble onto something that's truly excellent. And I have anecdotes for all of these, and they're all great anecdotes. So
wait, can I agree with you, right? But there's a question of just like, what are you spending your time on, right? Well, like if you're just like spending so how many shitty, stupid decks did I make you play test against, like, over the course of time? Right?
Only a couple, actually.
Yeah, but like,
because I had so little patience for them.
Yeah, but it's like, all right, I'm going to make a blue-white control deck, but instead of Standstill, I'm going to have AK and Exalted Age. Like, that was a deck I made you play test against. And then I kept losing to 12-12. I'm like, let's try again. And I kept losing to 12-12, right? Like, it just wasn't good, right? Like, but the part of the problem was it wasn't faster. It didn't have any super capability. It just didn't play Standstill.
It just had Gaia's Blessing. Like that, your capability was that you wouldn't get decked, where Standstill sometimes gets decked. Or
but
brain
not really.
freeze.
Not if you played properly. Yeah,
or
that's
brain
a
freeze
great
in
example.
this era. Anyways, so Sweetest Innovations in Premodern. Chief amongst them, so innovative that it got a card banned, is of course the Rise and Fall of Parfait. And this was a deck that was brewed by a cabal of all great players who like understood how to make the deck better with every change that they made. And also incidental to that, Sam Black in his own lab, of course,
in his cave.
Yeah, in his cave. He built this in a cave, coming up with again in multiple iterations or variations on this theme that were proven to be successful. So I highly recommend you actually go back and listen to All Things Considered with Rich Shea, in which he explains the Lobster Con parfait list, because it's actually
his innovations are insane.
They're insane, and it's unbelievable because you got to listen to his reasoning for a bunch of cards that aren't even the deck anymore, like Cunning Wish. Like this is my favorite bit. At the end of the episode, Rich is saying, he says, I like Triskelion, but I'm kind of considering Shard Phoenix. And this, I think
the insane thing about that episode is just like, you have to play Cunning Wish because you don't want to play Funeral Pyre.
Yeah, because yeah, exactly.
LOL.
Yeah.
Sure, Rich.
So he's just like, I'm thinking about this Shard Phoenix, and Mano is of course just like, oh man, that'd be sweet. Is that better than Triskelion though? Like, is that better than? It's like, is that better than Triskelion? I don't know.
The greatest.
You tell me. You stop losing to elves. Like Rich at the episode is just like, man, I don't know how to make this deck beat elves. He figured it out. Mark Voigt beat elves all the way to a European Championship top 1.
At that point, right? Like, that was weeks or months before the PSS that year, right?
Yes.
Like, look at how bad my decks at the PSS last year were. Like, they're pretty bad, right? I think, like, at this point, I mean, I don't think Fran and you and Tom are all more informed about the format than I am. Like, I would say, like, the three of you are. How many people who aren't on our list are more informed about the format than I am, right? Like, not a lot, I would guess.
Yeah,
like,
we had I know Mike Hoyp, you've been busy with volleyball. BK, you're busy building Crows and Tusker decks. Even Michael J knew that Ricky Thorson was piloting a mono green deck, but with the deck lists in hand, coverage failed to identify that there were no white cards in his deck. They kept on just being like, well, Ricky could draw a Seal of Cleansing or a Plowshares here. It's like, no, he can't.
No, it was the Thermokarst version. That's obvious. I mean, but we've been talking about this on our list like for weeks, because I was just like, what was the arc? I'm like, this deck looks awful. And I'm like, man, this deck makes a lot of top 8s. I'm going to buy all of the cards.
Yes.
So Fran was just like, it's just not as good as my deck.
So yeah, exactly. So anyways.
But that is classic Fran.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true.
Binary Soloist, like, take a drink if Fran says that his deck is better than whatever the other version is.
So Rise of Parfait, it's brewed by players who are extremely good. They're extremely focused, and they understand what they need to do to make a deck win. The second deck is, of course, Blue-White Dreadnought. So a lot of people love to take Fran down a peg and just be like, well, Fran, other people were playing Blue-White Dreadnought before you,
but their decks were shit.
Yeah. And I'm just like,
I mean, they just had shitty decks.
I'm just like, are you not paying attention to like what's happening here? Like, are you not paying attention to the fact that like what Fran has designed and iterated upon is just better than everything, that he just doesn't lose any match? Like, he just doesn't lose matches until the people who play him every week are like, well, I guess I'm playing 4 Crumble, 4 Naturalize, 4 Red Blast, 4 like to defeat this guy.
Yeah, so like I was talking to Mano about this. He's like, this is just how we used to build Dreadnought decks. And I'm like, Mano, your decks are terrible. It's just terrible by comparison, right? Like this is just old tech, right? Like Fran is just basically playing the mono blue Dreadnought deck with like he's not like playing a quote blue-white deck, right? Like he's not. I mean, at one point, I mean, I just want to watch Fran videos.
Yeah,
now.
You dug back into the archives.
I just went back into the archives, and dude was casting some Enlightened Tutors a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but
Like,
they left the list really quick. It started from 2, then
like,
it went to 1.
So when Mano says like, "Oh, this is just how we used to build things," it is kind of true, right? But Fran eventually got to a place which was just like the essence of kind of iterative Magic design, like where he's just like, "Here's the mono blue deck. This deck is like a 9 out of 10. I'm going to keep almost all of its capability. You can't keep 100% of its capability, but you keep almost all of its capability and graft an incredibly powerful sub game onto it. Like, look at how many games you just win with Meddling Mage, right? Like, unreal.
Yeah.
Like when Tom locked you for top 4, he did it with cards that are not in the mono blue deck, nor could the mono blue deck summon them. But even beyond that, I would go so far to be like, look at the sideboard plans. Look at how Rich approached the sideboarded games with Blue-White Dreadnought. Those capabilities, like, I'm going to brain freeze your Enlightened Tutor, that is new technology. Since LobsterCon, that's awesome. That is really grafting additional capabilities onto a deck, giving it a plan that defeats the thing that was going to defeat it.
Yeah.
And that's how you brew a deck.
Yeah, exactly. And so, listen, it's just impolite, all right? Like, Fran's not trying to say he invented playing white cards in a deck that contained Phyrexian Dreadnought and Stifle. Like, we all know he's not saying that. And, like, just let him have it. Like, he did the thing.
Who's taking this away? And just idiots?
Well, yeah, obviously, but we just like,
and they don't get to be in the new Facebook group because it's a Facebook group for non-idiots.
Okay. So, anyways, the reason why he succeeded so much was exactly what you're saying. Was he took a successful shell, which was the mono blue shell, which was, of course, shout out to Sven Lutz, Alvaro, and Tom for being the shrimp squad and putting together a deck that was a menace. And then Fran just took everything that was good about that deck. And this was very early on when Fran was playing Premodern. He was like 6 weeks into playing Premodern. He first tried blue-green Dreadnought, Man,
I love blue-green Dreadnought, man. Yeah. Nimble Mongoose. Yeah, Werebear.
So anyways, that's a great innovation. And then I think I had like a third one. I mean, what's like the next? Maybe those are the two biggest ones. Anyways,
I would have arguably said, like, since the banning of land tax, right? We have the rise of the mono green Ponza.
Okay. So this is a good anecdote.
The
so
green white Cataclysm deck that Fran always talks about, right? And Lands deck, which are like 3 decks that are, the thing that's weird about them is they share so many cards in common and they're nothing like each other.
They all behave differently.
They are completely different decks despite having a ton of cards.
So I will share with you the one counterpoint to my thesis. And this is not a detraction from this particular player. TV Tyrant Online. When I first joined the Premodern online community, TV Tyrant would bust out the weirdest decks. He had a Mana Bond, Lion's Eye Diamond, flashback spells deck that was just completely off the wall.
Rock and roll.
He was just bringing, like, every time I played him, he was bringing just the craziest stuff. And he's kind of counter to my thesis because it was clear that he wanted to do the thing. It's not that he didn't want to win, but he was more interested in really, really experimenting and not taking something, not iterating, just being like, this, I guess I'll call it what if deck building. Just like, what if turn 1 Lion's Eye Diamond, Mana Bond, put 4 lands into play, 3 Roar the Worm into my graveyard, flashback Roar the Worm, deep analysis, etc., etc. So that actually,
it sounds like you made a lot of effort to just do regular things. Just like, I blew my hand to make a 6/6.
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like, yeah, everybody can do that.
Yeah, plowshares. But anyways, so that's this approach eventually led him to this mono green Ponza deck. And if I'm not wrong, he started with just a mono green Ponza deck, and then it became a mono green Ponza deck with Oaths. And he kind of kicked off, this first domino that eventually led to Ricky Thorson winning the Midwest Championship. Midwest.
There were mono green, like, descendants of the Legion land loss strategy that existed. Mano had a friend who he told me about almost made top 8 of LobsterCon last year, but he ran afoul of one Richard Shea in the last round. That is not a matchup you want.
And I think that one's on camera.
I think it's like, or he has Argothian Worm, I think, in his deck.
Yeah.
So he's just like really into the green Ponza, right? So Thermokarst, Winter's Grasp, Argothian Worm versus just a one mana enchantment.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't know. It's kind of a cruel message, but like when you set out to make a deck, and don't get me wrong, like Mike has said it too. It's like both of us, we make some really bad decks. Like you set out to make a deck, you set out to improve upon an existing concept, or you set out to come up with an entirely new concept. This process is extremely rigorous, and it's like one in our podcast with Sam Black, we were like, well, the problem is that people like the reason why Sam brews so much and other people don't is maybe because people don't try that hard. The truth is, people just don't like you and I are mere mortals compared to Sam and his deck building ability. So and then even too like Sam's napkin decks, like obviously he has an extremely high hit rate, but it's not like he's 100%.
I've never seen you grumpier than when you were playing a Sam Black deck in a standard, not standard.
Yeah, but that deck was still good. It just was like, you
just lost every round, and you were not in a good
No, I didn't lose every round. That was the thing, is I was grumpy, but I went 2-2. But
but you were super grumpy.
Yeah,
I've never seen you that grumpy.
Well, because I just don't. I'm just like not
want to ever lose. Yeah, Sam, I've got it.
I'm not into Gaia's Blessing Haunting Echoes as a win condition. Just like,
yeah, but maybe you should have picked the deck that had win condition. I guess you have Baloth in that deck, right?
I added the Baloth. I messaged Sam and I was just like, hey, I'm not winning these games fast enough. I was like, I think we should run one Ravenous Baloth. And he
add an extra Haunting Echoes, bro.
He was like, okay. And I was just like, yeah, I timed out.
That Sam's whole cabal with like some part of the internet that we don't really interact with that much, but you can see glimpses of it on the X app. They just want to play decks that make Gaia's Blessing look good. Yeah. Like that's their whole goal in life.
Yeah, no. So. And then that's, when you get a Sam Black deck list, you're just like, is this, well, like, Gaia's Blessing and Mox Diamond, of course. You're just like,
those are his babies.
Yep. Anyways, I don't know. I feel cruel. I feel cruel because like Premodern, it's all about the fun. We want to build cool decks. It's like a closed set. And then every time it's just like, hey guys, check out this new deck. And we're like, that deck is worse than elves because why would you play anything other than elves? Like, why do you want to play your cool survival deck that has 5 colors and like wins the game in 20 turns when you can win the game in 3 turns?
So let's do something analogous, right? Like, I run races. I run lots of races. I complain about how shitty my times are after every race. Okay. But I run lots of races, and in order to run all these races that I run, I need to train basically every day, right? And I mostly just like train against myself. But I do want to do well, and when I do better than I did in the last race, then that's a sign that maybe I did something good, and it's fun. You get things out of it. I meet people at races all the time, right? That's fun to do, So, like I think that's very similar, right? But like, if I just like never trained and then like I showed up for races and be like, oh man, it's weird. I'm 2 minutes pace worse than I was last time, right? But like I had to walk like a full mile out of the 3 miles that I was supposed to run because I'm so out of condition, right? Like, isn't that the same?
All right, I have a different analogy. Okay. Some might say that we shouldn't have swim competitions with different kinds of strokes. You should only do the fastest one. Like, why?
Oh my gosh, this is a force and leverage argument.
Yes. Like, why would you use the butterfly?
This is mind blowing. And did we give people Olympic medals for this?
Yeah. Like,
LOL.
We're like, it's like, yes, I am the fastest at the inferior method of reaching the end of a swimming pool.
So you're really just conforming to a form. That's all you're doing.
So the argument would simply be, if you come up with a new way, a new stroke in swimming, you can make your own competition to beat yourself or other people trying to do the same stroke.
Oh my god, this is
in a
changed
race.
my entire perspective and everything. Like, this is crazy, right? Like,
yeah, that was just a tweet. I just loved it. Somebody just tweeted, just why are there different strokes? Like, why? Like,
did you
do the fast one?
You didn't happen to catch the gold medal match in karate at the end of the Olympics last time, did you?
I did not.
So I can't remember what country the guy's from. Like, they hajime. The one guy head kicks the other one. Sweet move. He got him. And then he's disqualified because I guess in Olympic karate,
I think I heard about this. Yeah. Can't do that.
You can't be good at karate. Like, and it's just like, I'm like, wait, isn't it a legal strike? No. He kicks him in the head. Yeah, he got past the defenses of this Olympic caliber karate fighter, right? Like, it was a sweet kick. It's like, he kicked him too hard. What are you talking about? This is a competition about who the best kicker is, right? Like, no, you could only kick within these two goalposts. Like, if you're too good, you get disqualified.
Well, that's how MMA was invented, Mike.
Yeah, well, MMA, MMA, they don't have that problem. I mean, there's illegal strikes in MMA.
No. But the very first UFC, that's how UFC got started, right? The very first UFC was just taking different disciplines of fighting and just being like, there are literal no rules.
I have all the original UFCs on bootleg VHS tapes. Thank you very much.
All right. Anyways, so it just depends on your perspective. Are we going to see?
Oh my god, the butterfly.
Who's the best at the 100 meter butterfly, or are we going to see who's the fastest to KO their opponent? No holds barred. Elves is the fastest. But it's
not holds barred. He just did a karate move. It was just straight up a legal karate move. He just did it too good. It's unreal.
Hey, listen, some formats ban Ancestral Recall. Some formats restrict them. He was just playing a Recall ban format, and he should just go play Vintage, where you're allowed to draw your one of Recall, and then Snapcaster it, etc.
Okay, anyway.
I wanted to... Anyways, the pin on it is just keep brewing, but if you... I don't know, if you want to brew with us, we're going to be really mean to you about how bad your deck is. I send deck lists to Mike, and he's just like, you took a deck that sucks, Grotog, and then you just made it worse. And I'm just like, yes, that's the plan.
All right, so this is the origin of one of the greatest theories in Magic, the Gathering. I never banked on it that much, but Patrick Chapin hella banked on it, right? He really leaned into this one for a big part of his content creation brand. So it's the year is 1998, and I think I'm so clever, and I send Eric Lauer a deck list over email. And my deck list has Gemstone Mine, Dothy Horror. I figure Dothy Slayer. I'm like, oh, this guy's too tough, and he's real good, right? And Lightning Bolt, and probably 2 undiscovered. I really worked hard on the mana base, so my deck has got Black Shadow creatures, Lightning Bolt. You get the idea, right? He sends me a
sounds Premodern legal.
Yeah, he sends me back a 1-sentence question, which is why would I ever play this instead of Sly? That was his response. And I thought about it, and I was just yeah, you just never would. It's stupid. I'm stupid. Why did I spend time on this mana base, right? And it's probably the deck that I used in the Ballad of Mighty Flores, now that I think about it. You know this story?
No.
Okay, Ballad of Mighty Flores. I had one of my best friends, Tuna Hua. He was an original member of Team Discovery Channel. He's the only person who went to both my weddings, of my friends, rather. Jeff Wu also went to both my weddings. He's one of the only 2 people who went to both my weddings. He's an original member of Team Discovery Channel, and he was an editor of the dojo before and after me. He's one of my best friends, right? So there was this time, in 1998, and I had this hella crush on this girl, and it lasted for years. After I graduated, still had a crush on her in 2001, right? So she asks me out to dinner. She's just let me buy you dinner, right? And instead, I was just I have to play in a sanctioned Magic tournament because I was really close to qualifying on rating. And I was just like, if I 3-0 this Magic tournament, I think I might qualify on rating because it's a sanctioned Magic tournament in the city of Philadelphia. I ended up going 0-3. And so that wasn't good for my outcomes of my good Magic rating. And I also never got the girl. So she I don't know, she ended up writing poetry about a guy named Michael and then dating some other guy when we got back from spring break. But the Ballad of Mighty Flores is Casey at the bat, except it was all about me going 0-3 in this local sanction tournament. And like, it was like a famous, like, famous in a small circle because there wasn't that big of a internet Magic scene back then. It was hilarious.
We'll need an ancestral recall, I guess.
There's actually an episode of Top 8 Magic about it, even though that happened like 10 years after the Ballad of Mighty Flores. But yeah, so if you've never heard of it, you could probably Google. Maybe it's on Google Groups. I don't know. Maybe it's on classicdojo.org. I don't know. It's been a long time since I read it, but it's very funny, and it's about me flubbing in a Magic tournament. And anyway, I bet I played that stupid
Black Dothy.
Undiscovered Paradise Dothy Slayer deck to get my 0-3.
Maybe we just bring it to Premodern. Why would you play it against Sly? Because you get in with creatures, they deal more damage than bolts.
So I turned that one email from 1998 from Eric Lauer into what I called the Prime Rule, which is to never be a bad something else. But then Chapin just called it the Prime Directive because it sounded better.
It does sound way better.
It sounds way better.
Yeah, it sounds
right?
so much better.
So much better. He's just the Prime Directive. I think he has like a rap song on the Gathering album about the Prime Directive. Like, never be worth something else, but in rap form. So that's like the thing that if you're going to make decks, if you are going to make decks at any level, right? You're spending time on this. Time is the only resource we can't get back, right? Literally the only resource we can't get back. You're wasting time on this. Then you have to not the very first thing. It is the Prime Directive. It is the first thing. It's not the Choice Directive. It is not the Scrapple Directive. It's the Prime Directive. Is you just can't be a worse something else. And when you talk about being like a bad Elves deck, I think that you are probably, at least in some cases, being a little too harsh because a lot of those decks have capabilities that the Elves decks don't, or they have like prophylactics that the Elves deck don't, right? Like they just don't lose in certain situations that the Elves deck might. And in some, they're probably worse, right? The Elves deck is so much faster that
it's just like an enormous majority. Like
yeah, so just like, well, you're not going to lose this way. I'm like,
you're like my survival guide.
Get turn 3.
It's like you're like, let's see the Elves deck have a wild mongrel in play after this.
I mean, like I just had games where like Lan like destroyed my survival of the fittest, but I like used the survival of the fittest like once to get a deranged hermit, but I had the other deranged hermit already. And I was just like, Anger, get one deranged hermit. He's just like doing the math in his head. I'm like, Cradle 18.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, wow. Yeah. Like I thought I killed your survival. I'm like, I'm not using my survival. I'm using my symbiotes.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah. I mean, side note, natural order or 4 copies of deranged hermit, like at least 3. 2 seems low. Andrea Mengucci picked up a deranged hermit at MTG Vegas. He got the list from
with a couple of new forests I saw.
Yeah, and a Masticore. And he got the deck list for Premodern Elves from Ollie Rod, and he was like, I think I'm gonna add a deranged hermit. I think that one could use one extra deranged hermit. So Prime
but he's
Directive.
probably not playing against the kind of resist. Like, so the card choices in Ollie's deck include things like being able to win games that maybe Mengu's just going to lose those games because he doesn't have a Druid Lyrist.
Well, Ollie just changes the list all the time. Like he definitely adapts it. But we wanted to talk about, we're going to circle back on the Prime Directive after we talk about PSS really quick. We didn't get a proper reflection on the PSS from the champion.
Who even won the PSS?
Just some guy. Just
some idiot.
Just some idiot. I'm not even sure I wanted to share. I think we talked about it on the cast like at length before each week, but the culmination was.
I think we should have a kind of a victory lap episode, but we're like 75% of the way through like a bunch of topics. Is this really where you want to lay your victory lap?
No, I just want to. I don't know. I just like want to answer some frequently asked questions.
Okay.
Nobody's asked me anything.
Grow-a-Tog, just terrible 12-12 deck.
That's the last question. That's the segue question into the next segment. Just give me a softball before the Grow-a-Tog question, please.
I don't know. Were you trying to get Mox Diamond banned? I just bought a set. This does not bode well for me. You and your mono Mox Diamond winning the PSS, and like. People are always complaining about like 12-12 and stuff. You know what was doing really well in Misty? Mox Diamond. There's like a bunch of Mox Diamond decks in this top.
Yeah, most of the Oath decks run Mox Diamond. Okay, I'll address a few things. First thing, I thought my deck selection was pretty solid, and Grow-a-Tog was really just like a counter pick against Dreadnought. I didn't run it against Dreadnought the entire time, so that plan didn't work out. I didn't really run it against nearly any of the decks that I wanted to run it against, although I did have it as a hedge against Parfait because of exactly how it played out. I did hit a huge like top end of my range against Rich. So in the finals, poor Rich just got lucked on. He like scrapped and scrounged for an awesome win of Blue-White Dreadnought against Parfait. He was favored, but he had to battle for it, and I just got the dubs handed to me on a silver platter.
Wasn't it just the same match twice?
Effectively, yeah. It was meddling. It was Chris.
Gets like pinned by Chris.
Picula, yeah. Pinned.
That's what it looked like to me. You're just like, I'm literally just going to counterspell the only thing that's going to stop this, and like nothing else. There's like no decisions. You're just sitting there. It was obvious you were going to cast one counterspell this game or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And that's how it rolled.
I top decked a foil for the Pyroclasm. That was just like unbelievably lucky. Anyways,
so you were gonna cast one counter spell or not.
So I felt good about my decks. Obviously, burning Parfait turned out to be like a really cool thing that maybe in practice I was just like literally always burning Wish for deep analysis, and then like sometimes I don't know, but it was cool.
It was
cool. The Replenish deck, I'm so much higher. Like I learned a lot. I didn't bring the best version of Replenish that I could. The deadline was approaching, and as you can see from my list, I just went with the 2-2 split of Careful Study, Plow, and Seal.
4 Exalted Angels. That's the egregious.
So it should have been 4 Plowshares main, 4 Exalted Angels. I corrected that at the Sacred Torch Showdown, and
I saw you added Counterspell, specifically the kind of resistance I said you had to have.
I mean,
specifically Counterspell.
I added a copy of Counterspell to the sideboard.
I only played 2, but I didn't have your Exalted Angels.
Yeah, exactly. Exalted Angel is Counterspell, like serves the same purpose. Anyways.
Well, no, one of them counters Haunting Echoes.
So
I guess the other one does kind of counter Haunting Echoes. They're Haunting Echoes and you're bashing them for 8.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so let's just quick rundown. Grow-a-Tog ran up against Stasis and lost, beat Replenish, and then beat Parfait. These were kind of things that as I drew it up, I did not expect to play against Replenish and Stasis, but whatever. Replenish defeated Blue-Red Tinker, which is not a deck I expected, but I think I just defeated it on raw power level and a little
that was
bit of luck.
A gift match.
Yeah.
Alvaro messed up and
it was a gifted game. We would have ran a game 3 if that didn't happen.
It didn't look like a good matchup.
And then I ran it up against Blue-White Dreadnought, which I was at least in that game. Were it not for the skill mismatch between Rich J and myself.
Rich played you like a beautiful violin.
And then I also played it in week. I played against the Rock. That's right. Beat Jared Descent on the Rock. And then, I knew that I would just be good in that kind of matchup. And then a Parfait lined up well against Star Spangled Slaughter. It got defeated by the Rock, and it got defeated by Blue-White Dreadnought. So it was actually the worst deck in my lineup, if you can believe it.
I mean, you lost to Tom Metelsky and Rich Shea.
That's also true. These are true statements.
It's not like mortals.
I wasn't favored in those matchups though. That's like the take home for me.
I refuse to believe that there's a deck that has a banned card in it that
has unfavorable matchups
against the Rock. No, specifically the
Rock.
Come on.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, so I think my replenish deck can be better. I think my burning parfait deck was really awesome, and Grotog we'll talk about in a second. I said all my thank yous in the closing interview. I mean, look, I think we leaked it. Like I was as sweaty as a person could possibly be, time permitting, about this PSS. I rallied the testing team. I was bouncing ideas off of.
I mean, one weekend we literally only tested exactly Mike Arnold's Star Spangled Slaughter deck against exactly your parfait.
Yeah, but that lasted 5 games because I just won all of them, and then it was like, well, I don't think we need to test anymore.
I landed the future site, and I just drew 40 extra cards.
This isn't true. So after we established who the winner of that matchup was, I played a little bit of Grotog against Roland on Burn. We played a little Esper mid range against whatever it was you were playing. Anyways, but yeah, we took it super seriously. Shout out to Ricky Thorson, the Fall Cup champion. In week 2, he helped me test Blue Red Tinker against Replenish, and we came up with a sideboard plan that worked. And then Tom and I got some matches in preparation for his battle with Rich. It didn't go the way that we tested because Rich refused to pick Goblins or Dreadnought, which surprised us, but is what it is. So shout out to the homies. And obviously, shout out to Hoyp and Flint for just putting on an unbelievably great show. We've all heard it. We all know it. So the frequently asked question was why would you play Grotog if you believe in the Prime Directive and it's simply a worse Stifle Knot deck? I think my answer to this question is that it is not a worse Stifle Knot deck. It's not a worse anything deck. Okay, so I'll say it's a worse deck for sure. Because it's a.
You think it's a worse deck because it has a lower average win rate?
Yeah, it's a much less consistent deck. I can't really put average win rate on it because I'm the only one who plays the stupid deck. Robin Lund is getting into it. And
people always make top 8 at Misty with it.
Yeah, and then for
idiots,
it had 100% conversion in the hands of RD and Michael Horn, I think was his name, or is it Peter Horn? So I think his last name was Horn.
I think it's Michael Horn, which is weird because Mike Hron actually is from Madison, Wisconsin. Grand Prix winner, Pro Tour great Mike Hron.
I don't know that, but sweet.
He invented Survival Squee.
Okay, nice. What? He brewed that one up. He just came up.
I mean, he was the first person who played a deck that was just based on Survival Squee instead of just having a Squee.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We've talked about Grotog a lot on this cast. I'll basically put it this way: Grotog has a much lower base level consistency because, Dreadnought has these 12 cards that are kind of situational, being Dreadnought and Stifle Vision Charm. Grotog has these cards that aren't situational but aren't very powerful, like Foil, Mox Diamond, Fire Ice, and Queer and Dryad. And so you can just kind of get a bad mix. You can draw, you have 12 cantrips, but sometimes you flood out, even though you have 17 lands, 12 cantrips.
It's just like a mono green Ponza Oath versus green white Terraclysm, right? They have a lot of cards in common, but one of them is a Ponza deck and one of them is a prison deck.
Yeah, exactly.
They're actually different, right?
Yeah. So Grotog is a move the advantage bar one.
Grotog is a suicide black deck.
Yeah, sure.
And 12/12 is a Splinter Twin.
Yeah, it's Splinter Twin. Yeah.
So it's you're literally comparing Suicide Black and Splinter Twin. They're very they have a lot of cards in common, but the comparison is quite superficial when you look at it that way. They don't play the same.
Yeah.
right? Like one of them is about like, so like if you think about like the gears of 12-12, right? Like there's just turn 2, 12-12 vision charm, days in my hand, right? Like you're just life on easy mode. That's the equivalent of like uncontested goblin lackey coming in on turn 2, right? Like, but that's not all the games, you know? Versus like grow a tog, sometimes you have a 1/1 Kyrian. Sometimes you have a 2/2 Kyrian. And that doesn't happen often.
Even a 3/3.
Right? Yeah. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes you have 2/2 Kyrians, right? Then you have other games where like one of your Psychotogs is actually bigger than a Terravor, right? That's weird. You know? But these things can happen, and these are capabilities, and it's like literally a different kind of deck. But because it has so many cards in common, people just misidentify it. I think I would agree, generally speaking with you, it is a worse deck. Like if you always wanted to just pick the spikiest deck, you wouldn't pick it probably. But
yeah, I mean, I would pick it if I kind of tricked myself into like if I knew that it was going to be like a lot of Dreadnought decks and actually a lot of Terravor decks because you're pretty good against Terravor decks. Then
you can eat all of your lands and then your Psychotog is bigger than their Terravor.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that. It's just like you're just good. Like Terravor, their main point of interaction is Swords to Plowshares. So like Mage on Plowshares is pretty potent. But for what it's worth, I'm talking about the Threshold Terravor decks and not the Oath Terravor decks. So that likely changes things. The presence of Oath of Druids changes things. Because like Exalted Angel isn't an easy card for Grotog to defeat, but it's an easy card for Grotog to daze or fire. So
your main deck interaction is just Fire Ice, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So, at least Threshold-based Terravor decks were never hard for Grotog. Yeah, I think because it generally plays poorly into Oath of Druids, that might change things. I played not Grotog, but I played Esper mid-range Psychotog into Fran, and having to name both Swords of Plowshares and Oath of Druids with your meddling mages, and then even after all that, your opponent can simply cast their Terravors and Exalted Angels. That probably changes the matchup a bit. So whatever. Anyways, my bottom line is I can talk myself into a metagame that I would want to bring Grotog instead of Blue-White Dreadnought, because Grotog's just not a deck that people prepare for, because Grotog's a deck that's not worth preparing for.
Yeah. I wanted to extend that into a different set of decks in Premodern, right? So I wanted to talk about 3 decks that are closely related, even more closely related than 12-12 decks and Grotog, which are Mono Blue Dreadnought, Blue White Dreadnought, and Blue Red Dreadnought. And I'll punchline this by saying that I actually figured out a time when Mono Blue Dreadnought is better than Blue White Dreadnought, which we didn't think was possible, right? So there is a time, right? So in the abstract, it is irrational to choose Mono Blue Dreadnought if you know that Blue White Dreadnought exists. I think that is a pretty strong statement in general.
But we said it and backed it up before.
Yeah, but it's just like, can you actually think of a time when you would rather have Mono Blue Dreadnought than Blue White Dreadnought if everybody was informed? And the answer is no. Like you can't, because like Mono Blue Dreadnought, it literally just has shitty cards, right? It's like there's a bunch of inconsistent cards in the deck.
We said
that
it
make
before.
no
Let's
sense.
get to
right?
the next chapter. Yeah.
They could just be meddling mages, right? Like,
our audience is well aware of our statements here.
So here's the thing: if you go down a tier, that is not true anymore when you compare Mono Blue Dreadnought and Blue Red Dreadnought. There are times that you would rather be Mono Blue Dreadnought than Blue Red Dreadnought. And the reason for that is the mana base of Blue Red Dreadnought is so bad, right? So it is actually rational to choose Mono Blue Dreadnought instead of Blue Red Dreadnought sometimes. I think Blue Red Dreadnought is better than Mono Blue Dreadnought. But I wouldn't, burn you at the stake or whatever if you chose Mono Blue Dreadnought over Blue Red Dreadnought. Interestingly, I think that that Blue Red Dreadnought and Blue White Dreadnought, I don't think that Blue White Dreadnought is less like 100% of the time better than Blue Red Dreadnought. There are many times rather be Blue Red Dreadnought than Blue White Dreadnought. For example, imagine like everybody in the room was land still, but you had to play a Dreadnought deck. like Blue Red Dreadnought's much better than Blue White Dreadnought in that situation, right? Like good players on land still feast on Blue White Dreadnought players, but like Blue Red Dreadnought, for example, can escape point removal with Fling and chip shot you with Grim Lavamancer and Lightning Bolt and actually just get games that way, right? And besides which, because the mana base is so bad, sometimes you get free wins with first turn Dreadnought Days backup. Like that is the weird, super weird thing about Blue Red Dreadnought. The high end of its range is actually higher than all the other Dreadnought decks because its mana base is so bad. And also it has a great sideboard because it has access to the red cards, right? So it's not actually the case that Blue White Dreadnought's always better than Blue Red Dreadnought. It's not always the case that Blue Red Dreadnought's better than Mono Blue Dreadnought, but it is almost always the case that Blue White Dreadnought's better than Mono Blue Dreadnought. You agree with all the things that I said?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Okay. Blue Red has range, whereas Mono Blue effectively just doesn't have a range that isn't covered by Blue White.
It just has the problem with Mono Blue Dreadnought is it only has one gear, right? When you start saying like, okay, my Blue Red Dreadnought deck beat a Landstill player with three Seal of Cleansings in play, like Mono Blue Dreadnought could never win that game, right? Like they would run out of stifles before the opponent ran out of these Seal Cleansings that were already in play, right? But there is a time that I figured out recently before the Sacred Torch Showdown when you would rather be Mono Blue Dreadnought than Blue White Dreadnought. It is a rational time. It's not just a stupid made up time. What is the defining characteristic of Premodern as a format if you're going to bring somebody into it?
I don't know. My paradigm about card advantage. I don't know. What is it?
Well, I was thinking like a lot of people come in for the nostalgia. Right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nostalgia. You bring people back, right?
Yeah.
I think that you could bring a capable player back, right? So there's a player with 3 Pro Tour top 8s who's a good friend of mine who hasn't played Magic in 20 years. But I called him up and I said, because I knew there was open spots at Sacred Torch, right? And I said, hey, is it true that your last tournament, like you played a PTQ cold with a mono blue deck with Days Gush foil and you won a slot, right? Cold, no practice, didn't know the format. He's like, it's yes and no. And I'm like, well, how is it yes and no? It's like, yes, I did win a PTQ that way. But no, it wasn't my last one because I won more PTQs after that. Cold, right? So I'm like, well, what if I gave you this? And the thing is, if you don't know the format really
then you can't play Meddling Mage.
Then you can't play Meddling Mage. But like,
unless you're Etai,
huh?
Unless you're Etai.
Yeah, but you could play Gear 1 Mono Blue pretty well by just understanding how your own cards worked.
Yeah.
Right. So like, that's actually a time where it's like, all right, I have somebody coming in. They're a good player. They're just not like a weirdo who plays Premodern all day like me and you.
I'm gonna blow your mind even more. You know how you can't misplay a Lava Spike?
Yeah.
Can't misplay Mono Blue. I mean, obviously you can, but it's substantially harder to misplay Mono Blue than it is to misplay Blue White.
You can misplay Mono Blue, but you can misdeploy your 12/12. You can
Mono Blue. I'm just saying, Mono Blue is Lava Spike, Blue White is Lightning Bolt. Can't misplay a Lava Spike.
I mean, like, I'm trying to explain. Like, Blue White is like not Lightning Bolt. Blue White is like sneak attack, right? Like there's a lot of shit going on.
My analogy is good, okay? Just let me have
it. It's sneak attack.
It's a good analogy.
All right, it's not
analogy
Lightning Bolt.
Is sick. People are going to be messaging me about how good an analogy
yeah, but Mono Blue you can misplay, right? Like Lava Spike, you can misplay Lava Spike.
You can play Lava Spike on the wrong turn. You can play Lava Spike instead of bolting a Goblin Guide.
Yes, there's okay. Look, I understand what you're saying.
The analogy is really good. Blue. You're just like you're refusing to give me credit for how
let's make Spike Colony T-shirts that have Mono Blue. Mono Blue is this red card. Blue White is this different red card. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. Spike Colony. All right. A green card.
Please make your feelings known on Twitter. Rate that analogy on a scale of 1 to 10.
Or go on like other people's podcasts because people are always like, I was listening to the Spike Colony podcast and they were talking about this green.
All right, Mike, you can keep thoughts like that to yourself. We're still trying to be like humble guys here, humble PSS champions and PSS top 8ers.
last placers.
You got top 8.
Wait, so are they gonna do a PSS with just the bottom feeders? Is this like 8 bottom feeders?
No, because nobody would watch.
I mean,
who
it's
wants
like me,
to
Will
who
Hurst.
wants to tune in for the cast-offs? I'm just kidding.
So but then they would still have to invite back the champion, so you could feast on the bottom feeders. it's like you and 7 guys who couldn't buy a win.
I can't eat the bottom feeders because all the bottom feeders eat is bottom. So I would just be eating bottom-fed beef.
I mean, like me and you on camera on a Thursday night. Come on, you from your lofty champion.
Look, just don't. Whatever you do, just like don't say the wrong thing to Hoyt. So that just like whatever it is that just has you boned for next year somehow. It's like it's getting a crowded list. It's a crowded list, right? Because I mean, yeah, if I were to make my ideal PSS, I would name 4 competitors from the most recent one, and then I would just add Michael J.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's like me, you, Rich, Tom. Okay, me, you, Rich, Tom, Aaron. You gotta have Aaron.
Yeah. I think Jared coming back would be great. I think Jared did a great job.
Why wouldn't you want people like Ole, right? It's just because of time zone?
Oh, yeah, because of time zone.
I would love to compete.
We wouldn't be able to do it on Thursday night. It would have to be literally like Saturdays at noon or something.
Oh, yeah. So
that'd be a lot harder.
How sick would it be if you could go up against like Ole and Mark, right? Like that would be sick. Do they have like European PSS that I just don't know about?
No, they don't. But we could always, I don't know.
Somebody come up with European PSS. I would watch it.
Wake up early or stay up late to run it, or just like do it.
I watched Misty all day today instead of the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Reduke, top 8'd, whatever. I know how this one ends.
We did. I wasn't watching this. I was watching
Reduke is in. Simon Nielsen is in.
Simon Nielsen top 8's everything, right?
Yeah.
He's the new Nathan Stoyer.
Well, Nathan Stoyer just happened to not he bombed out at day 1, but that still isn't going to take the shine off him. But
did I tell you the story where John told me it was pointless to argue about who was better between him and Kai because one of Ole, Huey, and Reed was just going to be the best player ever.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's true, it's obviously going to be Reed because both Huey and Owen have been taken off the board.
Yes.
So.
I mean, let's see. It just could be Kai with the late resurgence.
Is Kai in the top 8 too?
No, but I mean, he got a top 8 this year, like one for 4 different decades, right? So
4 decades?
Yeah,
there hasn't been Magic for 4 decades.
90s, 1000s, 10s, and 20s. Kai has top 8'd in 4 separate decades. Oh my
God, there's been Magic for 4 decades? How is this? Oh my God, Kai, you're so old.
Yep. He's looking a little older, but he's not slowing down on the Magic front.
I think my first Pro Tour was before Kai's first Pro Tour.
I believe it.
Man, I'm old.
I mean, you are old. It's like, it's like weird.
I have top 8 in no decades.
I have when I tell stories about you to like my other friends, I'm like, there's just a man in his late 40s I spend a lot of time with. He's a riot. And they're just why? I'm like, oh, he's actually one of my best friends. It's like, what? And like, it's because we play a card game for teenagers together.
Card game.
Just like, what? This doesn't get better. It's like, you want to go do archery with us sometimes? It's a cool new hobby we do after we play the card game.
After we play the card game. I was having ice cream with one of my friends last week, and she was just like, I knew you were nerdy, but then like at some point she's like, all right, you're like a 9 on the nerdy scale, right? But like by like midway through, she's like, you're 10 of the. By the end of the day, 15. She was just like 16, like not even 15. She's like, it's just no one would believe me.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is who you've known me for 5 years, like this is who I am. And she's like, I didn't fathom the depth of what we would be talking about.
Yep. Yeah, it's like pretty funny because like I like told my parents, and they're just like, oh, this your cousin's husband actually he actually also plays Magic. I'm like, oh, is that so? I'm just like, just so you know, I don't really play Magic. I just play Magic with a few guys, and we only play with a subset of cards printed between 95 and 2003. And they were like, that actually sounds a lot like what this, he was describing the same thing. I was like, you guys, it's literally impossible, because if he also played this format with a subset of cards from 1995 to 2003, I would know his name. He lives in LA. Is his name this, or this? And like, then it's not it. And they're like, no, I'm pretty sure. So I texted him. And then it turns out this guy's like, is at least familiar with, he's, my cousin married a tech multi-millionaire. Yeah. He was like, oh, is that like an old school format? Is that like Alpha 40? Because I was like thinking of getting into Alpha 40, which is 40 card decks with only cards printed in Alpha. And I was like, no, it's not quite that, but good on you. But like, you know, I thought he was going to be a Commander player, and he's just like, well, I've been trying to get into Alpha 40.
Okay, so, you know, like my whole thing is like, I'm just always like promo code Flores, blah, blah, blah. People are like, oh, I just ordered this from TCG Player. But like the whole like joke all the time is like, I keep not getting my shipment for like, every week someone's like tweeting me that they didn't get their shipment from TCG Player. I'm not ripping on TCG Player. I had a great relationship with them when I was them. It's just a thing that comes up all the time. So me and Hacker went to this bar after we were hanging out with like Lan and John, like on Wednesday night. We go there and we were just like talking to these women, and like one of them was just like literally like, oh, my boyfriend plays Magic, and she's just like, TCG Player owes me like X. Like, this is like a super hot woman in a mini skirt, like on like a random Wednesday night, and she's just like complaining about a TCG Player order. It was surreal. I'm like, how is it? This is in real life. This isn't on Twitter.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to New York, right?
Like, I guess that's a good point.
But I was just like, it was just weird because like these two girls were just like, oh yeah, my boyfriend plays Magic. I'm like, names.
Yeah,
do I know them? Like, names. And then one of them had dated a lot of Magic players, apparently, but I didn't know any of them. Fair enough. Also they're probably 20 years younger than me. So
yeah, that's also probably true.
That's probably a problem.
Yeah, I mean, latest Taylor Swift update. Taylor Swift seen out with Sophie Turner, Joe Jonas's ex-wife, spilling the tea next night out with Haim and the girls. I saw a tweet that was just like, Sophie Turner got to keep Taylor Swift in the divorce. I thought that was pretty funny.
Taylor Swift breaks all the formats, right? So
it's only a matter of time.
Her documentary, which is just, she did no additional work, right? It's just like, all right, I made the greatest music concert of all time. I guess somebody filmed it. It broke the record number of pre-orders for a movie by 2x, right? Which is insane. It's like not even a new movie. It's not even real. It's just a concert.
Yeah, and it's a direct. It's like a direct. She's not working with the film distributor. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail with Taylor Swift talk. I did have one last thing.
Isn't this like 100 points on the Binary Soloist?
I am sure. I am just trying to get anybody playing the Binary Soloist drinking game super drunk. Sorry, Sacred Torch Showdown. I did just like want to make a quick observation.
Oh, you top aided. If people didn't know,
I top aided with Replenish. I added 2 lands. I added an Exalted Angel. Yeah, Tom got top 4 with Goblins. He just played it straight all day. Snuck into the top 8 at 4 and 2, and then he just got defeated by Adam Sitsis. Cool thing about Sacred Torch: no deck out of 37 people got more than 3 individual pilots. The decks piloted by 3 people were Burn, Goblins, and the Rock. Each had 3 pilots. Then Dead Guy Ale, Mulch Oath, thanks to Lan and Mike, Patriot, Survival Elves, and Landstill each had 2 pilots. And then every single other deck was just 1 pilot. So, sorry, I just don't want to get back into serious talk. But like, you show up to a Premodern tournament and you're just like, oh, I only am going to try to beat, Goblins, Landstill, and Elves. Like that comprises, less than 30% of the entire room.
It would have been like 10% of this tournament, right? Like,
yeah, you might have played against one of those 3 decks twice.
I played against Landstill and Goblins and Elves all.
Yeah, well, you caught them all.
But I lost to the Landstill deck because of Cloud of Fairies.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that he didn't cite Clyde of Furious.
We'll say that's the reason that you lost.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we were.
No comment.
We were. Freaking last episode of Spike Colony went over extremely well with the listeners. BT dubs.
That's weird.
Every time I think we're just like rambling, people like come through and they're just like, "Man, that was."
But I thought in particular that I wasn't good, right?
Because you were tired, yeah,
and I was grumpy, right? And
well, Lan carried the show then.
Lan carried it, yeah. So, and Cam was on too.
Yep, Cam gave the lowdown.
I think I own all the cards for Cam's deck. I think I want to make it like. I'm not sure if Words of Wind is the right way to go, but
we gotta go with Sam Black Winconless Enchantress. We gotta give that a spin.
Wait, there's no win cons?
The win con is just Words of Wind.
That's mostly but so Words of Wind is infinite, right? So like Words of War is not infinite. Like there's a finite amount of damage you can theoretically do with the Words of War. Because somebody will run out of cards before the Words of War might necessarily kill them. Like, for example, if your opponent's playing Loop Junction, you can't really kill someone with Words of War. It's not possible. But you can kill them with Words of Wind.
Exactly.
Right? You like lock them into no permanence and they deck out of cards so they can't cast their Gaia's Blessing.
Yep.
So, like, that's so cool.
Yep. Blue-green, Winconless, Enchantress. I made a I'm just like I guess I'm subtweeting Sam Black about subtweeting Sam Black because I was just like, oh wait, I wish Sam Black could hook me up with the deck for Sacred Torch. I said that out loud because I was like I wanted to get a free pass, like I wanted to just get a deck that just like would hands down win, and I didn't want like Sam to like send me a deck and I'd be like, that's cool, I'm gonna play Grotog. You know, he was just like, you can just like ask me what I would play for a tournament. I'm like, yeah, I know. I mean, I know that, but I just like, whatever. I was making content over here. Okay?
Yeah, but he would have played like Green White Mulch Oath. Like that's the punchline.
Well, that actually is the punchline. But
like all this deck you're ripping on me for playing is what Sam would have played.
I'm not like hardcore ripping on you for playing it. You ripped yourself. You knew that you should have played Dreadnought or Elves or Goblins. Because just because of familiarity. I mean, I think in a few weeks, Mulch Oath can, you'll have enough reps.
Mulch Oath is hard to play. That's one thing,
but
much harder than Dreadnought.
Yeah. But I've been wanting to try this deck. Winconless Enchantress. My only gripe is that maybe somebody won't scoop to me if I'm.
Put it in the Only Deck Picks channel so that I can make.
This is straight off of his article from Hipsters of the Coast from like right after the land tax ban, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you'll have to
look it up.
Go with.
I read that article, but I just didn't have any recall about this.
You'll have to go back into that revise. I keep on wanting to make decks with Weathered Wayfarer. Like everyone's like, Weathered Wayfarer is the shit. And I'm just like, well, you got to spend like 4 mana and miss all your land drops to like get a card out of it.
Isn't it just like a mulch that triggers your opponent's Oath of Druids?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, mulch won't draw you 4 wastelands back to back to back technically, but point taken. I mean, Weathered Wayfarer is Terravor has put up numbers next to mulch more so recently than next to Weathered Wayfarer.
I just have like what is it, like not toxic shock. I have like a post-traumatic stress over Weathered Wayfarer. I lost a finals of a PTQ once where I could not imagine my opponent winning. And I blocked with my Weathered Wayfarer and he found a way. With cost my team the end. We won the next week, but we were gonna win week 1. We didn't. It was my fault.
Last week we were talking a little bit about Terravor, and after another week of results, are we in a Terravor meta, Michael J?
I am very likely to play the mono green Terravor deck or the green white Terravor deck at the next meetups.
Fran obviously wants you to play green white, so
yeah, but I do have a finite number of cards, right? So it's not that I couldn't make any of the decks.
You just can keep one together.
Yeah, like I can't have all the decks together at the same time, right? So
you should be able to like just pick up about like 25 cards to just change between Mulch Oath and Fran Oath.
Yeah, so like, but also Mulch Oath has like a bunch of my cards from Rifter and Land. Like I
Well,
took
we don't
all the
play
Blink
Rifter
cards.
anymore. Like it's just
No, I mean I haven't sleeved it up since
yeah.
March or something. So like, and I took all the Bling cards out of land still for it. Right, that's the other thing.
Oh
Right?
yeah, because
So
you wanted the beta or like the Portal Wrath of God.
yeah, so so
Beta
all of the good
Plowshares.
cards that
Do you have
have
beta?
been
Are
living
you
in
playing Beta Plowshares?
FBB.
Oh, okay.
I have like a ton of Ice Age, also, but the ones that I play in the Landstill deck and the ones that I played at Sacred Torch were FBB.
Yeah,
Because I was playing I think Ice Age for a while, or maybe I was just playing Revised for a while. And Matt Sperling messaged me. He's like, oh, your deck's really nice, but I have an extra set of FBB if you want to take them off my hands. And I was just like, you think I don't have my own FBB? They're just in another deck.
Yeah, that's why you don't. That's why you don't take back deck photos without the best stuff. That's why you.
I know.
That's why you came to lowly Lanny Huang over here, who has but a mere 4 Mox Diamonds to his name, and can barely manage to play a revised Winter Orb. Can't even find an FBB Winter Orb for his one Italian black bordered Sylvan Library to complete the deck pick.
Yeah, of course, because otherwise I would have. Oh, but I'm going to my ancestral home in Ohio in a couple of weeks.
And then you'll just be swimming in diamonds and FBBs and EBBs.
I'll get the FBB Sylvan libraries. I know exactly where they are too.
You don't have any English Legends Sylvan libraries?
I might actually.
Do you have any English Legends land taxes that you can pull?
I think
they're expensive.
Threw a bunch of them away.
You what them away?
I think I threw them away because I ended up having to buy a set of land taxes after I cleaned and I'm just like, this is impossible. So I think that I threw them away.
Wow. That would be a shame, but I guess that's just what happens.
I mean, maybe they were with the
when is anybody ever going to play this stupid card? I didn't know
what a Premodern was at the time that I was sorting. That was my origin story into Premodern, right? I was sorting the cards, and then it's whatever came next.
Yeah.
So, let's not dwell on that.
Fair enough. I mean, I just have nothing. Right? I just have my JSS Shard Phoenix and my 2 player reward Psych Talks that survive my collection. So I had to buy it all. But it was a good decision in the end. I've got much more mileage out of my Premodern cards than even my random dual lands that I have in my Legacy Reanimator deck, which I haven't played since I played it in one event in 2019, where I bought all the cards for $1,500, $2,000, something like that.
I mean, like I feel like I just want to play Premodern, and then I just play Arena or whatever if I want to get my contemporary Magic thing. But then I just have to play an RCQs. Like, they just come up, I have
at least play like Monday Night Legacy with the guys, like with Jeff Ferris and Roland Chang, and
it's in Queens.
Just do it. It's
okay. Monday night is my writing night.
Oh, so fine. Friday night Legacy at Bifrost Games in Flatiron District. You can roll up to Friday Night Legacy over there. Play with the Legacy guys.
Did I ever tell you? It does feel weird, like when I go to like a Premodern meetup and everyone's talking about the stuff they were doing like the day earlier because like all of them play Legacy with each other.
Yeah,
and I feel like I'm not in the in group.
Yeah, you're not. You literally so aren't.
Not in the in group. So
yeah, you just like show up and they're like, oh, it's Mike. It's Mike. He just plays Premodern and RCQs. He's just he doesn't know shit about Blue Red Delver or Blue Red Black Delver.
Yeah, I'm just like figuring out like which decks I can own because like obviously I haven't invested in keeping my Legacy collection up. I think I'm like probably a couple of Archmage's Charms off of just like Wafo's blue-white deck
in Modern.
In in Legacy.
Archmage Charm is not a Legacy card.
What would they play? Are you sure?
Archmage's Charm. You're talking about Ray of Command, Counterspell, Divination. That card played in Legacy. Also, Wafu doesn't play Legacy.
I'm telling you,
you're way off base. It's a modern deck. You're describing a modern deck.
Oh, maybe Nassif played a Legacy deck with blue-white?
I mean,
I don't know, man. I saw a deck on Twitter. I'm pretty sure it was Wafo.
There's like a super dirtily there's a bunch of dirtily snow control decks. Now the freaking beanstalk decks are just like ridiculous.
Oh, and maybe it kills with a staff. Like, is there some sort of annoying staff?
Yeah, there's a staff that makes tokens. There's a blue-white control. Oh, so there's the two decks. One is just freaking breakfast. It's cephalid breakfast. That also has the staff that makes token. It has like it has.
So I just own all those cards. I just need to buy the stupid staff.
Yeah, because the staff is like a Dungeons and Dragons commander set thing. It's just like when you make a token, put a counter on this, tap, draw a card, remove a token. It's just like all it does is tap, draw. Like it's just a Jam Day tome. But of course, it costs like 0 mana to like do any of this.
It just doesn't sound fun.
So yeah, no. I mean, Legacy is kind of cool because you do get this like kind of cool like, oh, like I'm gonna play this card that draws more cards, and like I'm just gonna win because I drew more cards than you. But I don't know. I just like. I think, I mean, I like, you know, as far as Magic formats that include contemporary cards, like Legacy and Vintage are still really cool formats. Like they're still like very interesting, and the interaction and the interplay is like super good because, of course, the problem with super contemporary formats like Modern and Pioneer is that the answers aren't good compared to the threats. And at least with the presence of like, you know, Force of Will, Swords of Plowshares, like there's a little bit of balance. And then of course they printed like cool answers too that kind of balance well in internal formats. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just play Premodern. It's just so much more fun to play Premodern. It's like so like one game of Premodern, like it just like a throwaway game, just like a game you just like a pickup game is still just like more fun than any kind of contemporary Magic game. So I just like,
well, so Premodern is like, I feel it's just like spiritually nourishing to play.
Yeah.
Like I
it feels productive.
That weekend we spent in Boston, like in the house and everything, I was just like one of my favorite experiences of my entire life. It was like so great, you know? And like I never got any of that out of competitive, like I don't know. It's competitive to me. I want to win.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
but we want to win so that people can send us messages on Twitter.
No, I want to win because I'm spending my time on something. Like it's the same way. It's like I'm never gonna be like as fast as Usain Bolt, right? Like
true.
That's not a thing I can aspire to, right? But I can aspire to be the best version of me.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean,
that's the.
I mean, I'll let I know this doesn't reflect well on me, but I'll let the listeners in on a little something. Like I want to be the best Premodern player in the world. Like,
yeah, no kidding.
But like recognizably, like I want people to be like, hey, who's the best Premodern player in the world? And then they would just be like, oh, without a doubt, that would be Mr. Lanny Huang. But the fact of the matter is, it's gonna be a long time, and it actually will probably just be a never that like I can with this, like I can look myself in the mirror and just say, hey, Lanny, this week you're better than Richard Shea. Like, Rich
came pretty close to being the first back-to-back PSS champion.
It's just not even that. It's just that he is better, right? It's just like you said it yourself, right? Say the thing about Rich.
What if that?
He's playing the same 75 cards.
I don't remember. What did I say?
You said Rich is playing the same 75 cards as everyone else. He just plays them better. Like he just knows what they do better.
Oh, I
mean, just, like understands what they are better.
Figured out what Rich was doing against you with his blue-white deck, I was just like, I never would have figured that out. And I'm guessing half the audience doesn't understand what's going on.
Wait, to rest him, we all saw the brain freeze.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, that's a brain freeze. And oh man, what a turn. I duressed him. I took the daze because his hand is brain freeze, daze, like Dreadnought or something or whatever. Or Vision Charm or something. I don't know. It's like 3 cards, and daze is like, I just took the daze because I wanted to resolve Chosen that turn. I'm like, surely this brain freeze isn't going to do anything meaningful to me. And then 7 turns later or so, I need to Enlighten Tutor for a freaking Seal Cleansing, and he brain freezes it. And I could have just waited one turn. I could have just waited 1 turn for my stupid Ancestors Chosen. I didn't have to play it the same turn as Duress. But instead, I took the days. No, it's not just a counterspell, because he was just like, well, you're pretty likely to get into a situation where you have 1 blessing in your graveyard. So then I'll just brain freeze you and stifle your blessing trigger, and then you'll lose.
The one thing that I was really admiring about Rich on this was, I think it's similar to what you were saying earlier in this podcast that I disagreed with you. Just like, you have to be better than this in order to win with this, right? Like, Rich has to be so disciplined to play the way that he plays. Like, you can't go off script, right? Like, and like, it is so hard sometimes.
Yeah, you can't lose focus.
Come up, right? Like, oh no, oh, I'm just gonna jump after this shiny object, right? You cannot go off script. And so he's just discarding meddling mages and Phyrexian dreadnoughts. And that's the thing that he's doing. And people don't understand it because he has a level of strategic focus that they can't even fathom.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so yeah, dude is better at Magic.
Yeah. No, he's just on another level. And I think we were just like, oh, well, John Finkel's like the best strategist and the best tactician. This thing is like, what we made the comment about Rich being a strategist. It's because he likes decks that are strategic, because he doesn't like playing the rock. He doesn't like playing goblins. He doesn't like these decks that force him to rely on tactics. But tactics and strategy are just forest for the trees, right? And so long as Rich has a strategy, his tactics are undeniable. Like, it's a tactic to use brain freeze in these multiple different ways to like whatever. He just envisioned a bigger picture that brain freeze fit into. And, cards like, I don't know, Wall Blossom's Pernicious Deed, like, they don't necessarily fit into, a strategic narrative that satisfies, the way that Rich likes to look at the game. But the fact of the matter is, like, he looks at the game and the match and like what's happening between the players and just like, 10 levels higher than you would expect him to. And he understands he's so disciplined, like you said, he's so disciplined to execute that strategy, and he does it with these tactics that you just don't see other players even consider. Vision Charm, just throw out a Vision Charm, Milia for 4. Just like,
I mean, just the stuff that you're saying, I just wish Andrew Cuneo played Premodern.
Yeah.
Made me so happy.
Well, let's hope he makes it to episode 16 of Spy Colony. Shout out to Andrew Cuneo.
I mean,
I know it's been a rough ride through the first 15 episodes, knowing not a thing about Premodern, but
I was trying to get him on it because, like, Andrew had a better collection than I did when we were coming up, by far. Like, he had like more dual lands, he played vintage and stuff, like, and he's like, oh no, I'm just all digital now, right? And he's a great streamer. Like, he's among my favorite people to watch on YouTube, etc. But I'm like, no, it's all cards you have. And he's like, no, I don't think you understand. I got rid of everything.
Yikes.
And I was like, I wish Andrew is so confident about his ideas, right? Like, other people just don't understand them. And I think, like, he's like the Pro Tour strategist version of what, like, you're imagining.
Rich Shea, yeah.
And he's just so good. And I've learned so much from Andrew over the years. He would love, like, that's the thing. He would love Premodern.
Yeah.
Like that. And we would all get so much of Andrew being in Premodern.
Just annoy him. Just, where is he located?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, I don't know. Well, if you live in Pittsburgh, try to invite Cuneo to your next meetup. We're going to keep working the pros. We got Manguchi playing some Premodern. LSV looking at deck picks. He loves looking at Premodern deck picks. He knows about Premodern. He just needs a little bit of competition. So if you're in the Denver area and you want to host a Premodern 5K, make sure to invite LSV. Michael J and Lanny Huang will also probably show up to that. Just
for
saying.
A 5K?
Just saying.
Getting on a plane.
Who else is on the hit list? Gab has Premodern decks loaded in his Magic Online. So when he's not too busy, with the Player of the Year race, maybe we can potentially hook him. Young Abe Corrigan has played at least one game of Premodern.
He's played tons just sitting next to us.
He can spread it.
Although he says stupid, horrible things like can I borrow one of your old school decks?
Yeah. Well.
Remember he said that to me?
Well, yeah, I was there. I was sitting right there. He didn't know. He didn't know. He's younger than the carts. It's just how it goes.
That was like one of my favorite nights when that little kid came up and he was just like, "Is that a real Gaia's Cradle?" Like, yep, there's 3 more.
It's the only, it's the only thing you have to. That's all we have. It's our Gaia's Cradles. She's like, "Oh, you win much money playing those?" He's like, "No, not at all.
We play for the love."
Yeah, got some scribbled cardboard. I've got some more scribbled.
So Phil was telling me that like he was getting a lot of nasty notes. Were you getting a lot of nasty?
No,
notes?
it was just it was just like he it was just like a little kerfuffle. He like posted it, and then people on Twitter were just like, "This is against the spirit of Premodern." And these people, of course, lived on different continents. And Phil's just such a nice guy. He's just like, there's something for everyone. We're building the thing that we want our community to participate in, and it's all good and overwhelmingly positive experience. I'm super go listen to Premodcast featuring Mike Harris. Mike Harris was nothing but effusive about how good the atmosphere was. Both of us had a great tournament experience, except for the part where you completely blew it. Just everyone was just being.
I mean, I would have gotten in an 8th seed, and Mike Harris would have browned me. That's what would have happened.
That's actually probably true of all of us. Like, if I would have advanced, if I didn't punt in the round of 8, I would have advanced, and then I'd have to clutch out another one against goblins, and then if I clutched that one out, then I would have to clutch another one against Mike Harris.
So I was explaining this matchup to Lan like the day before, and I was like, look, when I beat Robin right at LobsterCon 2022, this was my strategy, and he was just like, our deck can do the exact same thing. I'm like, yeah, but like the deck I was playing at LobsterCon 2022, after I do this thing, I just kill him the next.
You just win the game,
right? Like I just win the game. Like we have to play another 15 turns. Like,
yep.
During which time he might assemble one of his 2 combos again.
Yep.
I've been here with the Rock. And we don't have 7 power to put into play, right? Like,
yeah, that is. But
it was hilarious. His response was like, we could literally do the same thing. And I was
not
just
exactly, yeah.
Except we can't do the next thing.
Yeah, said nobody could showcase a little bit of Landy Oath. We got to give the deck a name because Mulch Oath just isn't cutting it. Because freaking
Landy Oath is good.
They called it stupid Mulch Oath. They called the mono green deck Mulch Oath on the coverage Chiron, and that was just complete BS. And so we just got to name these decks. We got green white Terraclism Oath, green white Threshold Geddon. It's Terravor. Mono green.
Just described the same deck.
Mono green Oath. No, because the Threshold Terravor doesn't run Oath. Oathless.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the Wayfarer. Jeff Ferris.
Oh, Jeff Ferris. Yeah. I call that Jeff Ferris.
Yeah, that deck is called Jeff Ferris around our circles. But for other people, you can call it Terrageddon Thresh. Threshold Terrageddon.
Jeff Ferris likes all these decks as long as they've got Terravors.
Yeah, mono green. And then you've got mono green Ponza Oath. I think that one's like super obvious. It's mono green. It's got Land Destruction. It's got Oath of Druids. Mono green Ponza Terra Oath. And then you've got Rack.
Landy Oath is good.
Rack, Landy Oath, Landy Oath Rack.
Just Landy Oath.
It has racks. That's kind of cool. Mulch Rack, Landy's Rack. Land Rack, Land Tax, Parfait. We'll call it Parfait. Good talk. So Parfait hopefully didn't get a chance to tear up the Midwest situation because Sam Black is in Vegas, scrubbing out of day 1 of the 1K. Bad beats. I'm sure it was a bad sealed pool, or the 100K rather. And then of course BK was running the show, so he couldn't showcase the deck. So if you're out there, give the deck a spin. Mike is really high on it, and I think it's fine. It just doesn't have blue cards, as Mike astutely pointed out. I am thinking of what blue cards to add to the deck. So,
you just wanted to stabilize the mana base?
Yeah.
Oh, guys, I figured that's the thing people do. Jeff Ferris was casting accumulated knowledge in the Terror Oath deck? I'm like, what?
I mean,
You pointed that out to me, right?
Matt Perlman was casting Meddling Mage and Engineered
Yes,
Plague.
I know. He literally just cast a first turn Meddling Mage on Oath against me. And I was just like,
Can't beat
that's
it.
a hell of a read.
That is a hell of a read, actually. You must listen to the podcast. And then, like, listen to it again.
Meddling Mage on Oath. So...
Okay.
And he was like, he's just talking about what a clown he is all day to me. I mean, he beat me 2-0 fair and square.
Yeah, he's pretty self-effacing, but I think he might be one of those guys who, if he didn't play decks that were too cute, that he would just like win a lot more. Sorry, Matt, your decks are really cool, but I mean, he was onto something. I want to make a 5-color. I want to make a 5-color Wayfarer Terror. Yeah, I mean, his deck was sick, and he 3/3 finish. He had the pressure of the feature match. I'm not saying a single negative thing about our guy Matt P. He's a good sport, and he's gonna break it. I believe it. And he doesn't give himself enough credit. I also wanted to shout out Justin Jaffray, who just rolled up at the Strategist playing Caleb D's Blue White Tron deck. He's been playing it through multiple meetups. He made top 16. He made the heads up play of Stroke of Geniusing targeting Mike Harris to force him to deck out. Like, you just like don't make that play unless you're paying attention. So that was super sick. Shout out Justin. Any shout outs, Mike?
I love Mike. This one's gone long already.
Love Spy Colony.
What's our current distance from beginning? 3 hours?
No, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. The people love it.
Love Mike. We're done.
Love Spy Colony.
Game over.